Hey, what's up, people? This is episode 86. This is the Option Podcast. Got my boy Carter Miles. Carter Miles is in the house and the episode starts. There it is. Right now.
Right now.
All right. Guess who's back? Back again. Yours truly, the host with the most. I'm Jason DeBiss. This is episode 85 of the Option Podcast. Miles.
Howdy.
You got like two first names, man. You're
I know.
like a Jamaican.
If anything, like my first name's a last name, the last name's a first name.
Yeah, Carter, man. What's good, man?
I'm good.
How was it outside? Was it like just regular chilly?
No, the sun's finally out. For the first time in like 2 weeks, the sun's been out. And truth be told, I've been digging the weather. It's like when it's cloudy and gloomy, like it brings out my moody side. Tap into it.
I think for everybody listening, wherever you are, like sometimes it's overcast. Like it's desert weather. Hermosa Beach, it's chilly as fuck in the morning, right? And then, but no matter what.
By certain standards.
Yes. But
Yeah.
no matter what, at the end, when it's time for sunset, the clouds move the fuck out the way.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and I think it's just like, the last little section of the sky that's just right above the water. It's very rare for clouds to hang that low in this area. So it doesn't matter if the sun hasn't been out all day. You're going to get that little bit for sunset.
Yeah, man.
Which is nice. It gives you a chance to go out and experience the sun, if even for just a few minutes in the day.
People, Carter Miles, man. This is Carter Miles, dude. Carter Miles, check out the hat. That is Soho Yoga. This is what this man does for a living. And he is a highly intelligent person. Ran into you a week ago.
I'm trying to be.
Man, we talked about everything from yoga to vaccines to touched a little bit on politics and how science has gotten like hijacked by the political spectrum.
Almost everything's gotten hijacked by the politics of today.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to cover that. But my first question is, I definitely want to know what got you into the whole yoga thing. Guys, this guy is a yoga instructor. He's a yoga guru. He is a yoga aficionado. Okay, so this is his wheelhouse.
I like that, aficionado.
And subject matter will be included, but not limited to these things. So, a year ago.
Yeah,
year
ago.
Comes,
cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. The whole world goes to hell.
We'll go March 15th.
Yes.
We'll put it like right to the date.
Let's just say that. March 15th, the world goes to hell. Everything shuts down. As some of these restrictions lighten up. For your company, for Soho Yoga, right? No, but for Soho Yoga, what were you guys doing to work around or work through some of these restrictions and still, well, first of all, still you got to work, right?
You're got to work.
Yeah, I mean, you're an instructor, but you're also an artist. You're
also a human being that has to eat.
Yes.
Right? So,
like a mammal.
So, surprise, surprise, you got to work to live.
Yeah, walk all on two legs.
And that's a whole topic in and of itself, like the idea of the right to work as a part of the right to live. But
so did you start doing like outdoor stuff?
Cool. So March 15th last year, I remember getting a text from the management just saying, okay, everything's closing down tomorrow. Studio's closing down, so you don't have to come in. There's no classes. We're going to figure out what to do from there. And Soho, like every other yoga studio, was put in this position where they were just an absolute no. Certain businesses were allowed to operate at full capacity, certain businesses, super limited capacity, other businesses, not at all. And so the whole fitness, health, yoga, market, industry, all those locations just got shut down for actually being present, which, I mean, that's hard. What do you do when you're a business that offers an in-person service? And they're just like, nope, you can't do it in person. So Soho went online. They started doing stuff via Zoom, started doing stuff on Instagram Live, trying to figure out like what's the best method, Patreon, right? So there's a few different options for how to do stuff online. I mean, that's essentially been the case for the last year. They opened again back in like June, and they went through all these different measurements that had to be put in place just so that they could reopen again. And then come July, like, bam, shut down again.
Shoot.
And that's been the last year and 3 months since March 15th, and it's Yeah, I mean, for the most part, online, and then luckily we worked something out with Hermosa where we've been able to teach stuff on the beach, and so we're still doing that currently, but that wasn't even until like last fall, so that's 6 months of like just online.
Wait a minute. That's you guys out there in the morning?
Yeah, on
That little
14th Street,
group? Yes.
right? Yeah, that's our group. We're supposed to be waving a flag, but it doesn't always get brought out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our group right there, right? Your volleyballs are like rolling through
Dude,
our stage.
I just love that no matter what, like, I'm there every morning.
We're out there too.
To get my work on, I gotta get my
with you.
yeah. But I gotta get my sunrise on, and
Yeah.
even let's say I'm coaching, let's say I'm actually maybe getting in and getting some games in, or I'm just doing nothing. I'm just gonna I'm just looking at my iPad or whatever, playing I don't know free stuff. Every single morning, no matter what, it's just like death
People
and
are out
taxes.
there.
Death, taxes, and yoga.
Yep, and yoga.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do it. You know, we have the word exercise in our society, but it's to make up for the fact that people aren't moving enough. People need to be moving every single day, otherwise their bodies just start to deteriorate. And I think a lot of people noticed that when the lockdown happened, when their movement practices were taken away from them. In the meantime, while they're trying to figure out how they could sustain some type of movement practice, like body goes downhill really quick when you're not moving. Yeah, it's not happy.
Jesus Christ.
And we got a lot of really strong people who really, they need it.
It was a big group, man.
Yeah.
It was a big group, and you guys did the social distancing. You guys had from a distance, it looks like a mass gathering, but when you get closer, I'm like, nah, these people they're all giving each other some space.
Yeah.
And the sun's rising, and it's almost like just a whole bunch of people watching the sunrise on a grateful universe. And I mean,
it is magical.
I bet you have groups of people staring at you guys just like, this is when we return back to normal. This is how hopefully this is how it's supposed to look. Is this something you're going to continue to do?
Yeah, we're going to keep doing stuff on the beach. I guess Soho and Hermosa, the town of Hermosa, have worked something out, so that will be able to continue, which is good because we're a hot yoga studio. We have a little bit of non-heated as well, but it's not for everyone. Not everyone digs hot yoga, and just like there's benefits to doing hot yoga, there's so many benefits that you're gaining from doing yoga out, looking at the water with the sun on you, with all that clean, fresh air, with the sand underneath your feet. I mean, you live in that environment,
No doubt.
Right? Just lights up all this different stuff in the body.
It really does. Like, and we're definitely going to get into what kind of yoga, because I know there's different kinds of yoga.
Yeah,
and we were
definitely
talking about my time. And wow, I'm just really, really happy. Again, I was really, really happy to see but let's rewind a little bit. What got you into yoga? Why yoga?
Cool.
Why'd you choose that?
So when I've been asked this question before, I usually go back like way before I even started doing yoga. I did my first triathlon with my dad when I was 14, and that was my first intro into health. And for me, I was never into team sports. I was never very good at sports that had any kind of ball dexterity coordination. So a triathlon is just you and yourself, right? You put the energy in and you train yourself, and you can have a coach, but it's really just, it's on you. And after that, I started getting into fitness, into diet, started working out a lot, running, biking, doing more triathlons. Then, I was probably about 18 when I got introduced to Buddhism. And so that'd be like the next kind of progression towards yoga. With Buddhism, the main idea that I found, at least, was that you can change your experience, right? You're not just a victim of your experience. You can make yourself happier. And if you kind of figure out the tools of life and the tools of this mind-body system that you live in, you can fine-tune yourself to the experience that's more of what you want. So it gives you a lot of power in that sense. The idea that you can, to a certain degree, change your emotions, change your experience, and it gives you a lot more autonomy and freedom. But then with yoga, I moved here to Hermosa 7 years ago, and actually took a class at Soho Yoga, and I was hooked right away. And from there, I went to go for a membership, and they hired me just on the spot to start working for my membership, and then got upgraded to a position that was also paid. And then I did the teacher training at Soho, and then it just started snowballing, getting faster and faster, more and more time doing yoga. I went to India and did another teacher training in different, more traditional styles. Stayed in India outside of a training and just studied and practiced yoga every day. And then coming back, started teaching as much as I possibly could. I was in university. I actually left university just so I could continue to teach yoga and really develop that capacity. then furthering into different styles, different ways of practicing yoga, Kundalini training. In this past year, I've really been focused in the last year and a half on breath. Right, so it's almost gone from like really physical, and then it's getting like more and more subtle, and starting to work into breath and breathing practices as a means of, again, self-regulation at any given moment, because it's a thing that you have to just pick yourself up or calm yourself down or shift gears whenever you need it. Right, the breath is right there.
Yeah, I remember we had a conversation before. I had a class. I was at a Marymount, Manhattan for theater, and we were required to take a class called Movement for Actors. And we had an adjunct professor. Like when you're in college and you're in like a BFA program, you only want faculty because those are the people that you trust. Those are the people that you talk to every day. When you have an adjunct, they could be really, really good, or they could be like, oh my God, this professor sucks, you know, because it is that kind of environment where people already come in more talented than some of the people that are teaching them.
Interesting.
So
okay.
yeah,
Got it.
They were the number 2 ranked program in the country when I auditioned.
And you probably have some proteges coming in.
Man, if I knew like how deep that was before I auditioned, I probably would have choked. So, I mean, I just wanted to go back to school for acting, and they're like, you have to audition. I was like, yeah, sure. No problem, whatever. And I'm just
no problem. Sometimes it's beautiful like that when you don't have the expectation on the line with it, and then you perform so much better.
I was just so loose.
Yeah.
But we definitely want to get in. Let's remember that, because there's a fun story I want to do. So I ended with an adjunct that no one knew, but when she came in, everybody just started signing up for her class. In fact, you're required to take a whole year, fall and spring, of movement. And when I got her for the fall, everybody signed up for her for the spring, and they're like, "Oh, the class is full," and I'm like, "No, no,
no, it's not."
Yeah, fuck off. We're supposed to have the same. No, but
cross out someone else's name and write your own.
No, but they're the first ones that say you have to have the same professor, fall and spring.
Okay.
For acting, fall and spring, voice and speech, fall and spring.
Is the idea being just so that you have that much more consistent guidance for 2 semesters, someone who's watching you as opposed to breaking it?
Because they're saying you have to have a year, and they marry you to your professor a little bit. Okay. So, and this woman was more lucid body movement. She was published on lucid body movement, which I think we were talking about before, explores the seven major chakras of the spinal cord, right?
Okay.
Like first chakra, just educating the people at home. First chakra is your groundedness, your security. They call that your power. Your second one is your feelings. That's your fluids. That's your sex. That's your energy. The third
self-worth.
One, the
identity.
Third one is ego identity, that's power. Sorry, that's power.
Yeah, the first
one is security. Third one's power.
It's kind of like survival, and then belonging, and then creativity is what I would put the third one as, because it's like your power to affect change in the world. It's very much where you start taking what you have and then putting it out. So
right to be here, right to feel, right to produce power or emote. The fourth one is the right to love or be loved.
And it starts to do with a lot of connection.
Yeah.
Right? So it's less of like this idea identity and more like this community connection.
No doubt. And the parts of the body, basically, where your coccyx bone is 1. 2 is like where your iliac crest and your sacrum is.
As well as like the sex organs, the reproductive system.
Feelings, fluids, Third one is your abdomen. That's the power. That's
digestion,
the ego.
Your fire.
Fourth one, heart, your ability to love and be loved. Your fifth one, where the cervical spine is, your ability to speak and hear the truth.
Yep.
Sixth one is your ability to see metaphorically. And the seventh,
I would say perceive and understand, because that's a unique one. Like the third eye, a lot of people talk about the third eye. Like, what do you see?
No, but the 6th and 7th, one is to see and one is to know.
So, I would think
whatever the order is.
I would think it would be like to see, to perceive, to understand would be the third eye, and then. Yeah, that kind of knowledge that just gets downloaded, that kind of connection.
Yep. And
unmediated.
that just comes more with adulthood, right? I mean, because a lot of kids coming up that are not psychologically developed.
You could say it does, but then you find certain adults and like, no, it does not. I think it depends on what you do. Mm-hmm. I think over time, any of the chakras can be opened. Over time, any of the chakras can get closed up. Definitely. Right? Any capacity can be opened. Any of them can be closed. And potentially, kids are actually like the most open with all of this at all. And then through the, socialization, adultation process, they get,
No doubt.
adulterated. They get changed, and then you have to like figure out how to reopen it consciously, intentionally.
Yep, that's so true. Yeah, and for the people watching a video version of this at home, bear with me. I'm teching. This is the first time I have not done a show in studio in a minute, okay, because of COVID. So this camera might kick a fuss, but at the end of the day, the audio is the most important thing, and that's how we handle in our business.
The ideas are here.
So, explain to the audience how like lucid body movement and the work you do, how does the work you do differ from lucid body movement? I already know the answer, but for the other people, for the people listening, yours is more physical.
So lucid body movement is a term that I guess I don't fully know the background with, right? So the term lucid and body and movement, like I can put those words together and have like a rough understanding of what it probably means.
Yeah.
Right. But if you want to give like a definition to lucid body movement, that might help a little bit.
Well, basically, it was a teaching tool. Well, it was also a religious thing. I think it was. I don't know if it's Hindu or Buddhism, but basically they believe that if these chakras that we talk about are imploded, it affects your psychological growth, and it shapes who you are. And and when it shapes who you are, to protect yourself, you start building something we call character armor to defend implosions of these chakras. For example, we talked about right to be here, right?
Yeah.
So the opposite of that is fear, right?
Yeah.
The feelings, fluid energy. The second one, the opposite is guilt.
Shame, guilt.
So the ego thing is shame. Loving to be loved is grief. Speaking here the truth is lies, and then the sixth and seventh is detachment or blindness.
That's interesting. So, detachment and blindness. Like willful.
And the reason why she did this, and what the hell does this have to do with acting? Everybody, some old cranky bastard. What the hell are these people talking about? It's acting, but. If you are aware of that, and if you know how to explode and implode and just not be such a control freak and leave yourself vulnerable, it shapes you to be a better character that you're trying to portray on the stage, right? Like if you notice old people, some people are hunched, right?
Yeah.
They're probably
locked up.
Yeah, they're here. They're hunched over. Then you see some people who are perky,
open,
like the challenger. We call it the challenger defender.
Shoulders back, chest open.
The one who defends the weak, right?
Technically vulnerable, but at the same time, there's something interesting that even though this is a vulnerable position that only humans are ever in, only humans exist with their hearts open like this. Every other animal, is down on all fours, it's closed. But at the same time, when we see someone like this, we don't think, oh, they're vulnerable. We think that person's strong.
Yes.
Right. We recognize that immediately as this is a strong person. There's like this relationship between strength and vulnerability.
Right? Look at apes when they're when they're exploding or whatever. What pops out first? So she believes, as well as other people who teach this, that for people who want to do some real work in acting instead of just being in the lazy world of typecasting, no, you can never play like me. I can never play a 40-year-old. Fine, I'm fucking 50, and I think I can. But right? I mean, I don't look 50. I look like an unattractive 35-year-old. So
I like that.
So for her. Right, this challenger defender thing, right? They occupy their mind by defending the weak who cannot defend themselves. Yeah, you can move that back and forth.
Easy.
Wherever you want. Yeah,
that was so easy.
It's all for you, man.
Great, I appreciate it.
So I understand your work deals more with physical to biomechanical.
Cool.
Please educate me and our audience on that.
All right, and it sounds like with lucid body movement, right? You're trying to move in almost an emotional way, an emotional, energetic way, and it's a recognition that certain motions and certain shapes are tapping into different like mental, emotional states with them, and you can't have one without the other. Right? This is the idea that if you stand with your arms out like a star pose for long enough, it starts to change your biochemical balance, like more testosterone, more serotonin, less cortisol, all these things. You stand like this, and then it communicates to your body like, I'm strong, I'm capable, I can do this. And so moving yourself in a way that is expressive of that stuff to kind of release the armor. A lot of the work that we do in, at least a lot of the times when we approach our yoga shapes, we do them much more biomechanically, right? That was a word that you used, and I think I've used as well. So it's trying to figure out how to move energy through the body from the ground up, right? So if you think about someone in space, they're trying to move and they're just flailing around, right? They have no capacity to control where they move because you need a surface to press into. And when you press into a surface, you get a force back, right? Newton's third law. You get equal and opposite force from anywhere that you press into.
100%.
So it's learning how to draw the energy up from the ground. And there's all these little locks, right? All these little spots that you have to get in the right. So you think the foot's got to be flat and like a part of the ankle has to be pulled up and you'll have a squeeze together of the thighs. And then like the pelvis rocks and the tailbone drops and it lets you lengthen the spine more. So you're starting to figure out how to move your body or move the energy through your body in a variety of shapes. So that's the idea of like how to do it. And then why do we do it? Like what shapes do we do? The simplest explanation would be you put yourself in shapes that you don't normally go into, right? So you have no need to go into a yoga shape like this.
No.
Right? Your channels for this shape right now are like probably completely open. You've aced this shape at this point. It's every other shape that's challenging for human beings just because of the patterns that we've lived our lives through. And, yoga isn't necessarily like a natural practice in the sense of it came after civilization. It came after society. And so it was somewhat of a remedial practice for the changes that people were noticing to the human organism through the society civilization process, where people are not eating the way that they used to, they're not breathing the way they used to, they're not holding themselves the way that they used to, they're not exploring a large range of motion in the way that they used to. To put it roughly, like the further society goes, the more comfortable it gets, the less variety that we have like in a lot of our diets, the less variety that we have in our motions and shapes, the less challenges that we experience. And so yoga developing as a practice for re-engaging those systems in a variety of ways. So you put yourself in these different shapes that are hard because you don't do them, and you grow the capacity to do them by doing them. And then your body just gets more and more capable in any variety of shapes. So, you have forward bends and back bends and twists and inversions and binds and all these things. And each type of shape is going to kind of unlock something else, open up those energy channels where prana is what they call it in the yoga sciences, but it's energy either in the form of, charged particles, like there's charged particles in the air, charged particles in the blood and the hormones, or electrical signals like through the nervous system, prana can flow through.
That's wow, Jesus Christ. That's something. So
that's something indeed.
There are, in my experience, there are more people that are interested in doing yoga than the ones who actually go and do it.
I would think everyone's into it, just what they might not know that they are or not. Everybody wants it,
and that's
even if the mind doesn't know.
That's kind of where I'm going with this. Like, my wife wanted me to ask this question. Like, there are so many people that want to do yoga, but they're scared of it.
Yeah.
Like, yoga is a scary thing because in their mind, they're stiff as a board. This person's going to turn me into a pretzel. And
the pretzel shape is great.
And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. You'd rather pay a chiropractor to crack your back. And only to feel the same way for him to have to keep doing it than someone that is trying to make the muscles in your back stronger to improve your quality of life so you can operate individual instead of the concession of permanent injury.
Yeah, and kind of constantly doing something from the outside in to fix the problems that are created by the patterns.
So I guess my question is, and maybe there's not an answer for this, how do you get people who are interested but scared to feel comfortable about yoga? I mean, someone comes here, it's like, I want to do this, but I'm just going to be honest. I have my reservations.
So I think we kind of have like there'll be like 3 yoga stereotypes, right? That a lot of people will go to in their expectation. If someone's like, hey, you want to do yoga? I've never done it before. My mind will go to one of 3 places. And the one is like the yogi in the cave in lotus pose, like rock solid, right? And I'm like, okay, that's way fucking out there. That's not attainable. I'm not doing that for 72 hours without moving. And then I think the next stereotype would be like a dancer, right? You see them and they're just like so open in every direction. They can do a split in a half, right? You're like, okay, I can't do that either. My legs will rip apart from my body.
No.
And then the third one, and I think this is our responsibility as yoga teachers is we've made it into this kind of workout thing, this like really hardcore workout thing.
Like half Pilates, half.
Yeah, and like I love Pilates. I think it's super, super functional. I like teaching that kind of functional hip mobility work. But how can we bring the power and the strength element into it without losing some of the essence and the mindfulness? Because that's where so much of the benefit really comes from.
Right. Let me show you something really funny while you're talking about this. This is one of my volleyball players I was coaching. Watch this.
Yeah. Right. And it's funny because like
man, you better go somewhere with that.
Almost every kid can do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Any 3, 4, 5-year-old can go from standing into a back bend into a wheel pose and like flip it over like it's no problem. Then it's again through the adultation process. I don't think that's a word, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, come on.
Through all the things that happen of growing up, we armor. We build up all this tension, and then we lose our capacities to do these types of things. So going back to like the idea of if someone's scared to do yoga, start with just a gentle class. Every studio has like a slow flow or a gentle yoga or a yin yoga or something like that, and just start to get into your body. You don't get the benefit from having the shape be perfect, right? You go in the direction of the quote unquote like perfect shape, but you're getting the benefit every day that you do it, every time that you do it. You're not waiting for some day to feel good about it. Every day you feel a little bit better because you're opening your body, you're releasing the armor, you're breathing through it, you're calming your systems down. Like it's a shedding practice, right? And life these days, it hits us so hard in so many different unexpected ways that it's impossible not to build up armor. And so the people who, don't go insane from that armor buildup are the ones who have a practice of shedding it. Mm-hmm. Right? And whether it's yoga or running, anything that gets you moving, gets you breathing, gets your nervous system to soften, is gonna be good, right? And you'll get the benefits immediately from it.
Yeah, and I think it's also the I don't like calling it the long game, but maybe the patience game.
The long game, yeah.
The patience game sounds just as lazy, but
it's a long game.
But yeah, I think
it is.
Like, look, for me, for movement for actors, there were certain things because there were a lot of like. Again, I'm just this returning adult student surrounded by everybody who's been doing this shit since they were 9.
Yeah.
And when I say acting, I mean musical theater, I mean dance, just
Fully
these complete packages.
Fully in it.
I don't know, maybe some of them, no, none of them are broke. They're all fucking despondent trust fund babies, right? And me, I'm just this kid from Brooklyn who served in the army.
That might be
right?
its own type of broke.
Yeah, but
right?
No, but there's certain stretches where there's one leg. It's like a pigeon thing, right? The one leg's in front and the other leg is like flexed all the way behind me.
Okay.
One leg's behind me and and that's a normal thing. Okay. And it's something I couldn't do. And and she's so good. She's just like, okay, Jason, you do it this way or whatever. And this, but as the classes went, I started doing it like everybody else because, like you said, the patience game, and I got a little bit more flexibility. And a little bit more range in what I was able to do. So like by the time week 4 came, because we did this 3 hours, we didn't do it. It wasn't, some classes meet twice a week. We did a bang out thing. Like on Friday, like this 3 hour, 3 credit, whatever. So we did it every day, and there's some stuff we did on our own time. And let me tell you something. I had a full-time job. I thought my boss was gonna fucking murder me for disappearing 3 hours out of the day. Because because I was working and going to school at the same time.
Full-time job is in like 9 to 5 type of job.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the only redeeming thing about it is that the job I was working at was across the street. From where college was.
It facilitated your other pursuits.
Yeah, so if a class is an hour and 20 minutes, hey, look, I need to run. I need
lunch break.
I need to disappear for an hour and a half.
3 hours is a little bit different.
No, but you can disappear for an hour and a half, right? 5 minutes.
It's like a 30 your day.
5 minutes there, 5 minutes back, right? You make up the time, work 9 to 5:30, right?
Yeah.
Nobody kisses up, but man, 3 hours. No, but the point I was trying to make, by the time I got to week 4, right? Professor looks at me, Jason. Okay. Very good. You know? And now, right now I can roll with the pack, like, or do it like everybody else, like a regular mammal. So, do you agree that like the people, it's just about the patience game. It's just about
the patience and dropping your ego in it, right? Dropping your ego from it, rather.
Yeah.
Because you can approach any of the shapes like with your ego or with a sense of humility. And if it's with your ego, you're trying to like, how can I make the shape as impressive as possible right now?
Yep.
Right? Like I want it now. And that's how people get hurt. They push themselves too far. That's how you pull things. Whereas you approach it with some humility, it's not about an achievement of the shape. It's about the practice and trusting that the practice is going to take you where you want to go. Right? So you show up and some days are going to feel better. Some days aren't going to feel so good. Some days you're going to do something new. Like a shape's going to unlock. And I like using the word unlock because the right things will have been opened from, easier versions of this shape, or just from the motion that you've been doing, or from your nervous system because your mind is calm, and you'll get into it and you're like, wow, right? And that's incredible. And so don't pay attention to the achievement, pay attention to the practice and keep showing up for the practice, and the achievements, they will just start coming. They will start coming, right? But if you're just focused on it, like that's usually how people get hurt.
And I think that this style of lucid body movement and even just basic yoga really helps actors because it's synonymous in the sense that you don't go on the stage to be good. You go on the stage to perform, and like you got to roll. The net result is you're good.
And to the extent that you're paying attention to the role and not, am I doing good?
That's when it is
good.
It is about it's about giving up your ego, but it's also about giving up control because that they're connected. You got to
soften
and being like you said, just not being able to make yourself vulnerable to try this, to explore this, to feel like an asshole, whatever, to put it in my terms. But the one thing that the major thing that this and theater performance has in common is that if you go up there to try to be good, you're
probably not going to be.
No. I had Lauren Bacall. My 9 to 5 was a doctor's office, right? It was a cardiology practice. Dr. Isidore Rosenfeld, Doctor of the Stars.
Yeah.
So Lauren Bacall, president of, Prime Minister Bhutto at the time, Ron Howard, Milos Forman, he was in Man on the Moon because he knew because he knew Andy Kaufman.
Okay.
Right? And the director is Milos Forman. He was also in A Beautiful Mind because he knew Dr. Nash, and the director was Ron Howard. Okay. So Doctor of the Stars. So Lauren Bacall comes in and she tells this story because she never wait in the waiting room. She just sits with me and she's like, hurry up. I don't have all fucking day, but for me, she never talked to me like that. It was just, it's my desk. It's like this row people work on, and she sits with me. She's got her dog, Sophie, and she told this story about doing 100 performances. And bear with me on this one. Okay. She did 100 performances.
Okay.
And like the first 4 or 5 shows, there's a way that she asked for the sugar, like for her tea, that just had the audience cracking up. So it's something that she picked up on, and then she tried to play to that. And like the next 90 performances, or I'm just using 90 as it was probably 50 performances or whatever. But
give the feel.
But let's say the next 90 performances, she tried to play to it and no one laughed. And then her last 5 performances, everybody started laughing.
She released it.
And and it was an interview on her, and they said, what did you do? And she said, I asked for the sugar instead of asking for the laugh.
Ha! I like that. That's great.
It's one of the most important things in theater performance. Anyone who's taken Stanislavski's style of Sanford Meisner is all about action objectives. They call it GOAT. Goal, obstacle, tactics, expectation.
Okay.
So if you're a young person, and there's Michael Chekhov, which we could always get into later, but Michael Chekhov is more for older people because you can reflect on experience. Like Sanford Meisner, if you get up to go across the room, you need a reason to, right? Chekhov, just get up, go across the room, come back. No, I want to go again. Go again. All right, cool. I'll come back. And then you eventually organically find out on its own. And this way your action objectives comes from a more honest place that you can identify with through experience. Yeah. So, younger people, right? You don't know how it feels to be divorced or married, right? You know how it feels to serve in the military. Well, you're a fucking rookie, man.
So many different things that you don't even... you just can't even come to understand remotely until certain age, certain experience.
I don't want to interrupt you because you're saying all these awesome things, and I'm a blabbermouth. But GOAT, basically, I don't know. You're doing a scene. GOAT, to get her to love me again. Tactics, she's got a boyfriend, right? Obstacle. Goal. Obstacle, she's got a boyfriend. Tactics, Fake it till you make it, right? Expectation, you get back together.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
so how much does that how far am I from the truth or lying to myself as far as yoga and just giving up that level of control, you know, instead of going in there with the ability to knock this out. Instead, just let, you know, the net result should be knocking it out, right? Instead of your goal to knock it out.
So I think this is like where the context of the practice comes in. So in the yoga philosophy, the yogic approach to living, asana, which is a physical practice, is the third out of 8 stages.
Right.
So there are 2 other stages that you're supposed to be attending to prior to even ever unrolling your mat and getting, you know, into your body and attempting these shapes. The first one is very much how you relate to the external world. So there's almost like 5 commandments, and they're not so clear as like, you know, don't murder, don't steal, don't covet. It's not like that.
No,
it's like non-striving, non-attachment, energy conservation, non-violence, these types of things. So it's how you relate to the external world. And then the next limb of yoga, the second one, is how you relate to your internal world. So there's things like purity or like cleanliness, contentment is one. But an important one here, the last one of the niyamas, or what they're called, Ishvara Pranidhan, is devotion. So it's a devotion to a higher power. So before you even get onto the yoga mat, this has to be like an essential part of your life, that your actions and what you're doing is about something other than you, right? And I think that's a lot of us, all of us, me especially, we you know, I want to do the asana stuff, and we jump right in, and we ignore these kind of psychosocial components that get your mind right, so that when you do get in to start doing the asana, you're not doing it from a freaked out nervous system. You're not doing it from this sense of ego glory. And so when you approach these shapes, it's all about, you know, I'm doing this to increase my capacity to serve, because a healthy, strong body is going to be that much better of a servant to do, you know, the good work. And so that kind of ego thing, it's not that it's not necessarily going to be there and it's not going to come up and you're not going to get excited about, you know, doing certain things, because like, shit, it's fun. You know, it's fun being able to do stuff on your arms, like handstands and arm balances and backwards somersaults and shit. Yeah. But it's not just the yoga, the asana, the shapes are not an end. It's a part of the yoga process. And yeah, I think that's how kind of makes sense of it.
Well, it's very Chekhovian in a sense, where the journey to the destination, the joy from that pales in comparison to the journey itself. In fact, it's all about the journey itself.
Yeah, and they you know, there's sayings such as, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. You're doing the exact same shit.
Nothing for a fucking college beach volleyball, dude.
Nothing is nothing changed. Only like now you're fucking present with what you're doing.
Yep.
Right. So it's not about any goal other than, you know, just being present and being the best that you can and contributing something.
Chop wood, carry water.
Chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coach John Mayer, the head coach at LMU.
John Mayer?
Yeah.
The boy John Mayer?
Singer too, man. Right? Look, he should have been coach of the year this year. So we ain't gonna. It's so cool not to have to talk about volleyball, because volleyball, like, people are careful what they say because they don't want to sound like they're casting aspersions on anybody, where someone that you have to work with in the future. So everyone's so politically correct, and I feel like I'm out there by myself when it comes to keep.
I know.
Well, I'm not talking about me, because the thing that divides me from a lot of other players and coaches and basically anyone is my bottom line and my brand are completely separated.
Okay.
Like what I say,
and that's a beautiful
it's not
thing
fucking affect my money.
That your bottom line and
nobody's gonna take. In other words, anything I say to you on this podcast about a coach or a player, is I might make some enemies here and there, but they can't like not pay me, and they might snub me. Or this guy will never, you know, coach or commentate at my event, and I'm probably. And the cool thing is, like, if that's their attitude, then that's fine. And 9 out of 10 times they weren't gonna hire me anyway. So what I'm not gonna sell out and do things everybody else's way on the hopes to get somewhere where one, then I'm not gonna get in anyway. And two, now it's double because I fucking sold my soul and I didn't get what I want. So I reached a certain age, and finances or whatever.
And that's the thing, like you've set the stage such that
your bottom line and your brand, it's the most liberating feeling in the world to have those completely separate.
Yo, I believe you.
And
I felt this. I felt this as a challenge with myself and my practice because I mean my bottom line is teaching yoga, you know, and it's not so secure. And to a certain extent, like, well, the market wants certain things, and right now the market's pretty weird. The market's
scary.
Pretty weird.
It has to be scary
it
right
is
now, dude.
A little scary.
Oh my God! But look, it's a phase, man. It's an evolution. I'm not 25. I'm 50. I mean, it's crazy that people think I should go through that, and I'm like, when you turn 50. Come back, come see me. Come see me on that full circle. Let's have a conversation. Because look, when I was 25, I went through that. In fact, at least you know, given your age, you at least know where you are and kind of what you want and where you're headed. I mean, who you think you're gonna be as a kid, and then having a realization, right? What the hell? I thought I wanted to be an accountant, dude.
Really?
You only need to take one class in college to be like, yes.
Actually. Now ninja. I always wanted to be a ninja, and now like I'm doing yoga stuff. Like this is pretty close to being a ninja. It's a different kind of ninja, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I've been brainwashed to think that all the things I wanted to do were not practical. I'm from a blue collar family. I'm a son of an iron worker. My stepfather's an iron worker. My mom was a legal secretary and then paralegal and went to undergrad and law school and all that stuff. Okay. So you tell your parents you want to be an actor, they just like.
Can't do that.
Yeah, you better get your ass a civil service job or something. Yeah. I want to be,
So we have those called politician.
Yes, I want to be a volleyball
successful
coach. I want
actor.
to do these things, and they're right because they're thinking, okay, how are you going to pay for yourself if you do this? And I get that.
And they're trying to take care of the practical element of your existence, and it's taken me a while, like maybe until the last few months, to start to really understand that. It's funny you say like where you came from, like a blue collar family. I came from a super white collar family. I grew up in a very affluent suburb in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. But again, like you think what's possible according to the role models around you. And so where I grew up, like there weren't artists, there weren't musicians, right? There weren't people doing their own kind of creative endeavors. There were like a lot of people who were kind of doctors, lawyers, education people, that kind of upper strata white collar work. And so you think, okay, well, the only thing that I can do, because it seems like it's the only thing that anyone has done that I know personally, is, well, you go to university right after and you get a 4-year degree, and odds are that's still not going to be enough, so you got to do something else. But shit, you're 18, you're 17, graduating from high school, and in like such a bubble of a world. And a world that's changed so much, like since I was 17. I'm like, how could I have prepared? How could I have set an expectation of like, okay, 8 years from now, I want to be doing this? And
it's like, oh, wait, you can't.
I think that's one of the hardest things about the times that we're in is everything's so variable and changing so quickly. Like, how are we supposed to project into the future and take actions towards some type of goal when it feels like the ground is just changing all the time?
Well, that's why it took me so long to go back to college. Look, I served in the military, a couple of years out of 18. I worked at a law firm for a little bit, just serving court papers, doing messenger bullshit.
Serving people.
And then, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. But
probably built up a voice for you, though. Like, I mean.
No, acquired it. My mom was, is a highly religious person. So she made me sing choir because like everyone in our family can sing. Like I'm the runt of the litter, but it's still enough to beat any of these pukes.
It's cool to see like what talents or capacities you have as an adult from different things. You're like, okay, I don't sing in church choir anymore, but I can still sing, and that's a beautiful thing. And even if you're not singing, like you're speaking now, and like what do you do professionally?
Dude, in the military,
a lot of speaking.
When we're doing the runs or the freaking road marches, who do you think is doing the cadence? It was me, man.
Left, right,
bubbles in her twat.
So sing for us, Jason.
Makes me happy.
But that's such a power. I mean, speaking and singing, like that's a superpower. If you want to talk about a superpower that humans have, speaking is one of them. Think just from the sounds that you make from your mouth. Because that's all that words really are, right? They're sounds that you make from your mouth, and they have a meaning to you, and they have hopefully a similar meaning to the people who hear it, but it inspires them, or it can inspire them to certain action if you make the sounds right, right? So you almost like put out this broadcast, and then the world starts shifting and changing according to the things that you've said. And I think like with podcasts especially, that so many people are speaking now, and so many people are listening to different ideas, and with every idea that you encounter, you're probably shifting your gears and your direction in life, at least your perception, somewhat.
Yeah. Well, when I got out of the military, I was at Hunter College for a cup of coffee. Wasn't down with this whole school thing. And the whole time I'm thinking, I want to do theater. And I'm at this office and I'm just doing imitations and like certain movies I do from beginning to end. You know, I was doing like Joe Pesci, you know, it's like, you want to tell me something, tough guy? Okay, go fuck your mother. Bing, bing, pow, bam.
We need someone from Brooklyn.
Yes. So, yeah, man, some of the most talented everything, right? Actors, comedians. Lauren Bacall's from Brooklyn originally.
Well, and I think New York is one of those examples of, all right, let's put people in like just a really competitive environment with a lot of resources that you have to scrap and fight over, and you're going to get some phenomenal winners.
You really
right?
are.
You're going to get some people who come out of that shit flying.
Well, what got me back into theater is Lauren Bacall. She's sitting there and we called her Dragon Lady because she was always in a fucking bad mood. You know what I mean? In fact, it was one of these doctor's offices where we had the old doctor in his 70s. We had two nurses, old nurse from Switzerland. You know, like my daughter's really good. Oh, not so much for you, you know. And then one who was a nurse in World War II, and it's the only job she's had outside of the Navy. She worked for my boss's father, Dr. Master, who created the stress test, and eventually worked for him. So it's only these ladies can set Lauren Bacall straight. You know, like they'll pull her to the side. You're acting like a bitch. And if you continue to act like this, you would be very alone. So that's the kind of, you know, moral turpitude they had. So I was like, I really want to get into this theater thing. And then Lauren Bacall sat next to me and she goes, well, what else are you doing? And I was like, what a
it's a great effing point.
I said, what a fucking bitch, right? But I was just like,
hey, honest though.
She's not wrong. So I was like, I have absolutely nothing to lose. I don't have my college degree. Eventually, if I'm going to stay in this cardiology or this administrative stuff, I was like making a pile of money doing the mid-level administration for this small practice. But if I was going to move up, first of all, I'd have to move out because in a private practice, your ceiling's only so high. Yeah. Because it's but no one's hiring you without your BA or BS. And I'm like, if I'm gonna go back to school, let me go back to school doing something that I'm gonna have fun and work hard at or whatever. Yeah. And I knew this could sort of come back full circle, right? Marymount, Manhattan. Yeah. So you have to audition? Sure, I'm fine. Okay. This and that.
You say so.
So the coming to Jesus moment, the thing that scared me the most is in the morning they do the dance auditions. And then close to noon, they do musical theater and singing. I guess, whatever, that's redundant. And then early afternoon, auditions for the BFA program, which is straight acting. Or theater with a concentration in theater performance. BA and BFA are kind of the same thing. Except BFA, you get to choose. You have dibs on faculty. Okay. So I'm waiting. I get there early, and then I just see people on the dance. This girl runs out crying. Right? And then I see like musical theater. This other girl comes out and she's pissed. She leaves. And then the professor, her name is Patricia Simon, who I might get into, but I'm talking to my man Ishmael Wilson later, and we're gonna out her later. I don't think I want to out her twice.
Save it. She'll come at you.
Yeah, she's like, thank you. Can I have someone real, please? You know, next, come in. You know, this girl's hugging her parents, and the parents are just kind of like, how dare you? Oh man. And I'm just
I can only imagine like a really high level admission process.
And I'm seeing all of this, and I'm just like,
oh shit, what did I sign up for?
What the fuck did I get myself into? I'm sorry, I'm going away from the mic. What the fuck did I get myself into? So what happened was there was a woman named Liz. We just call her Liz. I forgot her last name, but the people that from Marymount that listen to us know who she is. And Brian Reinhardt, he's like a theater or whatever. Long story, not so long. Why do you want to get into acting? They ask every person in a room. And I was like, just fucking be honest. I'm like, I grew up in a household where, you know, I mean, I married into a white collar family. Like my girl went to Harvard, you know, parents went to Harvard and Duke and all that stuff. So they're an academic family. But for me, it wasn't a reality. Like that was not
Yeah.
something we did. That's a pipe dream. You don't get to guys like you don't get to do those things.
And
So,
in your subconscious mind,
Yeah.
this whole realm of possibilities are just blacked out because of your experiences.
Yes, but being honest in that moment with everybody listening
Yeah.
in that room, the audition room, was the single most thing that saved my ass, because I was just honest and everybody
was probably so filtered.
everyone was giving a fuck. Everyone found themselves, well, you know what? This is the most exhale thing I've experienced all day. I'm stressed.
Like, this is what we've been working for.
Yes.
Like all your life, honey. This is what we've been working for. Don't screw it up.
But it was the first exhale, because there were people in the room that weren't just auditioning for that. For me, I was doing that and only that, not musical theater. But there was probably one girl that was like, "Man, I fucked up my musical theater thing. My dance,
my career is over.
And please, I really need to nail this to get into the school." And then when I say something like that, like what's the reality and what isn't, and this and that, everyone in the room, I felt like everyone gave a fuck what I had to say. And then I said, then at the end, I was like,
we have a barometer for truth.
Yes.
You know?
But the funniest line was, I said, well, I don't live with my parents anymore.
You're like, well, and this is something that's like true about me, you know? Got a little more experience.
Nailed the audition, and I went back to work, and I was like, I think I nailed it. And like the old nurses, when I left, the two old nurses were like, he's gonna be so disappointed when he doesn't make it.
Oh man,
you know what I'm saying? They're just these Debbie Downer realist bitches, right?
Well, it's funny though, like going in with a certain mind, you know. So when I first auditioned to be a yoga teacher out of my teacher training, like I was still going through my teacher training, and we had with Soho an open audition, and the way it works is like this round robin kind of thing where we'll have like 8 people who are auditioning, and we're all teaching the same class, and we take turns. So it's like one person goes, and like they're supposed to, you know, intelligently teach based off of like what we've already done and, you know, what's been established, like where we might want to go next, right? So it's not just, throw them into whatever shape. You're supposed to be paying attention and cueing accordingly, right? Mm-hmm. If I teach something right side, and then the teacher's like, okay, next person, you should probably teach it left side, right? Balance it out. Everyone was so nervous. Everyone was so nervous. People get so nervous about teaching yoga in audition type settings. And so I was still in teacher training at the time. And at first I was like, I'm just going to go and watch. So I know what the expectation is for when I do want to audition. I'm like, well, I'm already here. I might as well. So I had zero expectations for myself to do good. And it just flowed out completely naturally. And it's funny how it works like that. Like, there's such a thing as over preparing. Like when I teach yoga, I don't prepare for my classes by class. I don't prepare for any one specific class.
Cool.
I put in the prep work of like learning all this stuff at the beginning, doing these trainings. I do a lot of prep work in my own self practice. I find like that's priority number 1 is my practice. Everything I teach will stem from my practice. It'll be quality because I'm focused on my practice. Yeah. And then, you know, I'm well slept, I'm well fed, I'm well caffeinated. I've like done my practice in the morning. So when I show up to teach, I haven't done anything to prep for this class, but I've done everything to prep myself so that I can be present with what's going on and honest with what's going on and let it be natural. And when that happens, like there's magic there, and the brain works better. And like the people who you auditioned with, I'm sure they felt it from you. Like this is a real human being. You know, if you're gonna give me a rehearsed script about why you want to be here, you better blow it out of the water.
And let me tell you something. When people volunteer information, like if they're in the elevator and the girl tells her parents, she's like, "This is the guy I was telling you about. He was so fucking good in the audition or whatever." You know what I'm saying? When you don't ask someone how you're doing and they're being polite. When people you don't know from a can of paint were like, that was awesome.
They didn't have to say anything.
Yeah. So you're supposed to wait. I'm Kanye Westing this thing.
Cool, sweet. It's
supposed to come full circle.
We can always Kanye West anything you want.
Right? Because it sounds like I'm going off the deep end, but when you bring it back and how it connects to the original subject matter, I promise you I'm getting there.
It's all good.
Supposed to wait like a month and a half for an acceptance letter or a rejection letter.
Next day, they're calling you up at work like, Jason. Actually,
that's what happened.
That's it.
2 days later, I had one battery left on my
You're supposed
phone.
to wait like 6 weeks if you're a maybe, or if you're a no.
This is hilarious. I mean, can you imagine how 6 weeks and you, and if you really want
6 weeks of nerves.
No, if you really want this program in a bad way, because there's some people that are like, all right, you know, I auditioned for Juilliard too. I auditioned for AMDA. You know, AMDA is still a good program. DePaul, Carnegie Mellon. Yeah. All of these are good theater programs. Yeah. But at that time, for a 10-year time span. Number 1 and number 2 is Juilliard and Marymount.
Okay.
The east side of Marymount, west side Juilliard, Central Park's in the middle. So
Okay, got it.
So instead of waiting the 6 weeks, a day and a half later, I'm walking from my office to the hospital on York Avenue, and I pass by the school. This girl I'm dating, because in Marymount, that's what 33-year-olds date. We fucking date 20-year-olds, right? Right. That's a whole other story.
That's a whole other story.
So she's like, Jason, where you going? I'm like, I'm going to the hospital. I got to drop off some tapes and stuff. And she's like, can I come with you? I'll walk you. I'm like, sure. So my phone rings, right? One cell, phone's dying, right? And I'm like, hi, Jason. And he's like, I'd like to speak to Jason the Beast. And I'm like, you found such a man. I am he, right? Because I didn't notice I know he was. I'm acting like a clown.
This might be me.
So he's like, hi.
Who's this?
He's like, hi, David Mold from Marymount Manhattan's theater department. I'm just like
a day and a half later.
Idiot. And I'm just like, strange you should call me now, sir.
Sir. All of a sudden you're awkward and shit in a way that you weren't before.
In front of the school.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, if you're in front of the school, so
come on in.
Come on in. I want to talk to you. Do you have some time to talk to me? And I'm like, sure. So I hang up the phone and she's like, who is that? I'm like, that's David Moe. And she said, oh shit, that's so rare. This is so rare. And I'm like,
she's freaking out for you.
No, but she's like, this is so rare because she knows.
Yeah.
And I don't know. She's
she
like,
at
this
the school?
is so, yeah.
Yeah.
And she auditioned twice for the BFA, but only got in BA. She wanted the BFA because
you got to pick your teachers.
The BFA, and not just that, the BFA, the third year is Ibsen, Comedy and Manners for people who want to stay in theater. Okay. And the entire fourth year is Shakespeare. The BA program is 2 years contemporary, just like the BFA. But the third year, you get to choose to do what you want. You want to do acting for the camera. You want to do movement for general ensemble. So you kind of, it's more flexibility. But a lot of people who wanted to go to theater and stay in theater desperately want to be in the BFA. Me,
if you don't know what kind of acting that you want to do, you probably want to do it.
But that was the whole reason.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even fucking read Shakespeare. I don't want nothing to do with Shakespeare. So when I auditioned, I checked off BA.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I knew the BFA, you had to be a full-time student. BA, you didn't.
Okay.
BFA, you weren't allowed to do outside work during the academic year. BA, you could do whatever the fuck you want. And I'm like, I want to do whatever the fuck I want. So she's like, this is so rare. And I'm like, what's rare? She says, what did he say? Are you going to go in? Yeah, I'm going to go in. So I go in. And he's like, I noticed you checked off BA. And we wanted to know if you were interested in the BFA program. And he says, before you say yes or no, I'll say this. It's easier to start BFA and switch out.
Yeah.
Than it is to stay BA and then you change your mind and try to get in. It's a lot harder to change your mind and get in than it is to get out. So I'm like, sure, let's give it a go. He's like, look, worst case scenario, do the 2 years contemporary under the BFA. And if you don't like it, switch after the 2 years. So, and that's kind of what I did. I did it in my third year because third year acting and fourth year acting were 2 hours and I couldn't skip work.
Yeah. And
the last year was 2 hours and 40 minutes twice a week. I couldn't skip. I get fucking drop kicked. I swear to, I mean, my office is very supportive and they're very happy I'm going, but I didn't want
to a certain extent.
I didn't want to abuse that respect and courage.
Yeah.
So I guess the point I was trying to make the whole time was that there is reward for making yourself vulnerable and just giving up this control, because we're at the end of the day we're all control freaks. There's just levels to it.
Well, and
there's just levels to the completion of said control.
The very unique thing about being a human, you've got a brain that can project into the future.
Yep.
We're the only creature, as far as we know, that really has the capacity to do that. Well, what does that mean? Like that's the most useful thing for our survival that we have, is the ability to project into the future. 100%. But we've let that shit go override, right? To the point where now, well, how much do I really need to project? I know when I'm working, I've got it on my calendar, I'm getting notifications. Like, do I need to be in the future all the time? Like, how do I get back to the present? Because there's all this other good stuff here, But like, yeah. And because we can project into the future, we're constantly trying to control what's going on to cater the future to be exactly like what we want it to, what our dreams are. Yeah,
like we're absolutely sure what the future holds, right?
Yeah.
It's so true. For the people listening, for the audience watching the video version, I apologize. This is the first episode. I'm getting it in studio. This whole COVID thing's relaxed a little bit. The person who texts my show, who actually knows what she's doing, is not here. So this camera, if it cuts off, it cuts off. The audio, by the way, stays the same.
Cool.
The audio doesn't cut off.
Yep.
Just the video.
Just goes black every now and then.
And the zoom in, stop jumping when you and me stop jumping.
When we stop moving around.
Yeah, like, and honestly, that's what divides film from theater, right? Like film only cares about what the camera's pointing at.
Whole things going on in the theater.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, the discipline, and that's what Lauren Bacall, she taught me. She said
you're fully on. Every inch of your
she learned
body.
this from Humphrey Bogart. She said the audience is always one step ahead of you. If someone points a gun to your face, the audience already knows you're afraid. You don't have to make faces. Yeah. So the subtlety of theater, like if you do an eyebrow thing or just this, the camera's gonna pick it up. And the only thing the camera gives a shit is what it sees. Yeah. Where theater, there's exaggeration, there's expression. The people in the cheap seats got to see how you really feel. So like you said, voice is the common denominator. Voice, and more voice. But there are some people that just have stage performance faces. Yeah. And you know the kind of person I'm talking about, people with wide eyes are just like...
And, we have this in the yoga community as well for teachers, like stage performance faces, stage performance energy, right? I think that's one of the things that, like, getting into teaching yoga or getting into teaching anything, or I say getting into doing anything that you care about, right? It's learning how to take that element of, I care about this, I want this to be good, and then softening that control and realizing like it's going to be as good as it possibly can be, right? And you can't fight it, you can't force it.
Yep.
And you can actually cheapen it by trying too hard, right? You oversell it, I'm not buying it. And I'm sure there's actors, like you see it all the time, oversell something, you're like, that doesn't feel real anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, or yoga teachers or any kind of teacher, like trying so hard to set the spiritual stage. You're like, I'm not buying it.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah, throw some swears in there. Like,
fuck it off, boy. Yep.
It's not all good. It's not all peace and zen.
Well,
maybe it's not supposed to be.
Well, we call it quicksand. I got a Keanu Reeves reference from the movie Replacements. He's like this football player. He was a scab. Like they went on strike, so they, scab players started coming back. But they were just talking about what you fear, what you're afraid of. Oh, I'm scared of spiders. I'm afraid of clowns. I'm a cloudophobe. So, well, for me, that's a true story, but that's a whole nother story.
You don't like clowns?
Fuck no.
I don't like clowns either. No, like I don't think anyone likes clowns anymore.
I can't fuck with no clowns, dude.
I just can't fuck with clowns.
I will punch
you think you have any clown listeners?
Clown in the mouth if he thinks he's trying to relate to me. I will punch him out of fear.
Do you think you have any clown listeners? Like Jason.
Yes.
Thought.
Yeah. That's the next news. Jason hates clowns.
Jason hates clowns.
Jason's a clown bigot.
Clownophobe.
Canceled.
Yeah.
Clownophobe. So
do we segue that?
so I use this as a teaching tool for some of the juniors I coach. Like I coach juniors, I coach college for 12 years.
Yeah.
My last gig was LMU. I was John's assistant for the women's beach team.
It's funny. I worked with the LMU women's tennis team.
Yep.
Yoga stuff.
Cool, man. Yeah, man. And they're like, I like that because they come out of your class feeling like they could kick anybody's ass.
Well, any sport, any sport, because there's a goal. Right, there's a goal of like getting points, of scoring a goal, of winning the game. Right, people are gonna beat their bodies up in pursuit of that goal. Right, that's like one of the things about sports. Like, why does everyone get injured in sports? Because the goal is not health. Health is the means of the goal. But at the same time, winning will prioritize over it a lot of times.
Yeah. So quicksand, right?
Yeah.
I tell some of my juniors, right? You make a good play, you make a couple of good plays. Everything's normal, right? Like your training maybe kicks in, maybe it doesn't. But then something goes wrong, right? And then another thing goes wrong. And then another thing goes wrong. And you and your natural animal instinct feel like you have to do the same thing harder. Yeah. But the harder you fight, the deeper you sink.
Oh, man.
Until you eventually find out you're in over your head. That's quicksand. And that's a big, it's a big fucking sports fear. That's a big theater. It's a big theater fear.
And I would say this is a case for every human being.
Yeah.
This is such a pattern. Like you're describing this, and I've noticed this pattern play out so many times in my life as well. Still currently playing out in my life. But it's natural to think you just have to do more or do harder or try harder, and that's what the solution is.
And that's our responsibility as teachers, right? To let people know,
to soften people
two very important things. One, it's natural. Yeah. No, the other team's feeling it.
Yeah.
That's one. And two, it's not it's not an abnormal feeling. This is a natural feeling.
Yeah. There's ups and downs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
you know
how it applies to winning and losing is even more of a lesson.
And this starts to go into like biochemistry as well, because anytime you lose, and relating it back evolutionarily, it'd be losing like a battle or an alpha standoff type of thing, right? And even if it's not a battle, if you lose an alpha standoff, like you get a biochemical shift out of serotonin, less serotonin, more cortisol, because it's going to make you more like reactive, responsive, more fearful, so that like you've kind of recognized your lower position, and now you've got to like defend yourself.
But
right?
Doesn't that go back to character armor?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah, and then you start, because you're now perceiving the world in this scary way, right? You're building up armor to protect yourself. But then you're like trying harder, and because you're trying from this really tensed up energy, you're not succeeding, and so you have like failure again, and each time it like lowers you down the serotonin ladder, and then sometimes you just need something like, you just need to fucking win sometimes.
Don't we? And it's so weird.
Or a break.
And it's so weird because that shapes a type of person.
Yeah.
Dude, we're talking about a type of person.
Yeah.
Like, if we could write a few characteristic traits about this person, wow, I'm like in my life, that's that guy. You know.
And you can probably look at different times in your life where like event. Like I felt like an effing loser.
Yep.
Right. And it makes sense because you just keep having these losses, and then it becomes this biochemical part of your being, and you see the world through like this lens of those experiences. How do you get back up from those?
It's true.
That's the hard part. How do you get back up when you've been hit down so many times? Because it's not just like, it's not just like toughen up.
No, something has to change in your psychology. For me, psychological acceptance that things go wrong helps build it. Because I'm one of those, look, coming up in volleyball, you realize you're as good as someone. You realize eventually you get better and you get better. And I have the same level of nervousness if I'm on center court playing the last place team, playing a team that's unseeded, not coming. Let's say I come in a grass tournament and I'm the number one seed. I have the same level of nervousness playing a relative unknown as I have in the finals, playing a team that we've been wanting to beat the shit out of each other.
When you say nervousness, like what do you think that phenomena is?
It's just athletics we call it butterflies.
Yeah.
Just this excitement, and you can have butterflies and be the type of player where like if you have butterflies that only means you're ready.
Yeah.
Or you could be the type of player where you have that heightened level of enthusiasm, and the enthusiasm works against you.
Yeah.
And to quote Chael Sonnen, he's a mixed martial artist, and he did a reality show called The Ultimate Fighter, where these young up and comers, it was him and John Jones, two teams, where they were just coaching kids and making them better fighters, and the winner gets a contract at the end.
Nice.
So one guy's just like, I'm scared of your match and this and that, and he's like, I can finish that sentence for you. And he said in the narration, because as he's teaching his kid, he said, they tell you that losing is not an option. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Losing is an option. Losing is the most readily available option all the time. He says the two most important things you can tell that person is what we were just talking about. One, the other person's feeling the same thing you are, and two, it's a perfectly natural feeling,
especially for fighting. I mean, let's be honest, you're about to walk into a cage with like another trained fighter.
Yep.
Stakes are high.
But it's us as coaches and teachers to say, hey, next point. Let's that just happened, and it's it might happen again. Let's move on, and eventually it'll go away. Or we could let negative talk creep up in their head, which is certainly not in your wheelhouse. Because your wheelhouse is all about neutral to positive. There's no negative.
But the negative talk's going to happen with people internally, right? That always happens. And we got super type A people here in Hermosa Beach. I mean, I was saying to someone the other day, like, man, this city, to live in this city, you have to be type A. You just kind of have to. And there's obviously exceptions to that.
Or just be oblivious.
Yeah, I mean, but anywhere that's expensive to live.
Yeah, like Upper West Side, Manhattan.
You got to be type A to make enough money to do so. Yep. And you got to really want to. Again, with exceptions, but so we have a super type A demographic here, and those people, it's hard to not come into a yoga practice with that kind of achievement mindset, right? Because that's how so many of us go through our life, is through, goal. Well,
goal, obstacle, tactics, expectation.
Boom.
Go.
Right? And so doing that for everything.
GOTE.
So it's hard to be in a relationship and not put that into it. It's hard to do a yoga practice and not put that into it. Hard to do a lot of things that, maybe there shouldn't be such a clear goal other than the experience and the connection and feeding the experience.
It's weird because I wonder with type A personalities, do they have a release, something that they do on their own time that allows them to function as a type A?
Oh, they got it.
Or is being a type A their release? I'm not a type A personality. I'm an alpha. I'm just what you call I'm a straight up alpha. I don't have to thump my chest about it. I'm comfortable in my own skin. Okay. It's like, okay, how many years did you play? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't care. It's just, so there's a difference between type A's and just people, just regular Leos,
Oh, you're a Leo?
Yeah. Who only roar if we have to.
Yeah.
So, but that's the question. Is this personality a permanent escapism? Or do these type A's have to have something like, let's say a girl's a type A personality, she works in the financial world. Does she hire someone, that she could whoop his ass with a leather strap twice a week?
Right.
So she could function.
Or on the flip side, if you got a male who's a financial whatever,
yes,
does he hire someone to come whoop his ass?
Does he have the ball in his mouth?
Exactly, because he doesn't know how to surrender in your normal day-to-day activities. He has to take it to an extreme. Yeah. I've met people in the financial world who, they've told me I'm addicted to Adderall because the nature of the game is such that you need this biochemical boost to be competitive.
Yep.
And if you don't have it, you're just not going to be competitive, and that's just the way it is. And they're very real about what it's doing to their body. They recognize it, and then they need to release. And so there's other drugs for that. There's other chemicals, right? So it's I'm biochemically boosting this faculty, this sharp, focused, logical faculty, but then how do you walk away mentally from $1 million to 5, 10, whatever, however many $1 million arrangements that you've got going on here that are variable? How do you disconnect that when the stakes are so effing high? Well, other chemicals, right? So it's a hard so. And that's one of the things with the nature of our world is that the stakes are so high. You want to play the game at this level. Shit, you can, but it's going to take a toll on you. Same with any sport.
I'll give you an example. Volleyball, a lot of people, it's a hobby, and some people it's a hobby. Some people it's their way of life, because volleyball's about community. In New York Central Park, we're 100 players deep, but we all knew each other. Roommate situations, marriages, business deals. It was very incestuous, and Hermosa Beach is a lot like that, but not nearly as family style as New York was, because here you could
there's probably just too many here.
No, but here you could make a phone call let's play some doubles. They play some doubles, but after they play doubles they bounce, everyone goes their separate ways.
Okay.
In New York, we play doubles in Central Park. It's let's go sing karaoke tonight. All right, cool. Let's go to a fucking bar. It doesn't stop. Let's order Chinese food. They fucking deliver Chinese food to us in the park where the sheep meadow is, two sand courts. So I guess what I'm not long story short, but what I'm trying to say is, when my escapism became my career, became my
escapism from,
volleyball from a 9 to 5. My 9 to 5 is I
you're saying that volleyball was your escapism from your career, and then your escapism eventually became career.
My man Carter, I am not, nor will I ever be a 9 to 5 person. I did it because you said survival basics, first chakra, survival takes place.
You got to facilitate your life. You got to get that locked down. I'm very fortunate
to work for the guy I had, who allowed me. You want to go back to college? Sure, go back to college. You got an audition? Cool, go audition. You got an NCAA match? You as an assistant coach or a head coach, you need to escape. You got to leave Friday to Sunday. Fine, take Friday off. He was one of those guys that was I'd rather have you regret doing something than regret not doing it at all.
Yeah.
And I like that about him. But when my escapism, which was volleyball, to escape from my bullshit world, became my career, I needed something else to escape from that, because my strength and my weakness is I personalize my work.
Yeah,
and
that's definitely
it hurts
one of mine too.
When you bust your ass and you want so much for these kids or these pros and they lose, you take that hot L with them. You don't you take the dub with them, maybe not. You're happy for them with the dub, but it hurts like fuck to take that L.
It's a beautiful and painful way to live life.
So for me, karaoke. So before pandemic, Hennessy's Monday night. Sing a bunch of songs. Tower 12 on Thursdays.
Is that still going on?
Not during this, no.
Not right now? Damn.
No, and I swear to God, in
give it a month.
Jesus, it will not ever feel normal. It will not. I don't care how many restrictions. Good for you. Newsom,
I don't know.
Good for
I
you.
really
Cuomo,
hope.
Kiss my ass.
I really
hope. It will
hope.
not feel normal. It will not feel normal until karaoke's back. When karaoke's back.
When everyone can like get up next to each other, put the mic right up into your face, spray some spit on it, then pass it off to the next one.
Man, sing Alone by Heart where you're by yourself. Sing Piano Man with a bunch of drunken ass Irish dudes. To me, that's when it's normal. That's when it's gonna feel normal. So that's
when strangers are touching each other again.
Hands.
Will it
Sweet
like
Caroline reaching out, touching me. We just touched, guys. Sweet Caroline.
Man.
But so
normal again.
But bottom line, that for the last 4 or 5 years since I moved here in 2016,
karaoke's been it.
Has been my escapism that allows me to come back and do my job where disappointment hurts less. I can compartmentalize success because sometimes when you don't, you wallow in it too much and you're missing things that can make you an even better version of yourself or make them better versions of themselves. So I was able to do my job. And in New York, theater was my escapism from that job. But then there was a shift because my body was telling me my entire life, you're not a 9-to-5 guy. And sooner or later, you're going to fall in love with this shit. And then you're not going to work at this job anymore because you're going to want to find a way to do this full time. So the inciting incident was my boss retired.
Okay.
He retired at 90 years old. I mean, he was practicing cardiology. And he retired and the hospital who took over the operations decided, do we let go of this guy? Do we keep this guy? And I'm just like, dude, you ain't got to do shit with me, dude.
Peace.
Yes, you ain't firing me, though. Lay me off and give me my money.
Yeah, give me a nice severance package.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they gave me a 1-year project to transfer all medical records from paper to electronic filing. Because after 2009,
that sounds fun.
After 2009, it became legal to do that just by itself. So high-powered scanner. You could hire any old dummy to just put something in a scanner. But
you probably could have hired someone at half of what they were paying you to do it for you.
But you can't hire someone to separate what belongs in what file.
Got it.
You got this big ass file. Okay, these are lab reports. That's a stress test, but that's a stress test that comes with the echo. Do I scan that as one file? Or do I do it as
scanning
separate
part's
files?
easy, but the organizing
6,000, 7,000 patients from 86 different countries. And they're like, this is only going to take 3 months. Yes. I'm like, no, it's going to take a year. Yeah. If you want to do it right, it's going to take a year. So they gave me this office by myself. I swear to God, Super Bowl Sunday. I said I need another monitor. They gave me another monitor, and I used this room to freaking my audition partners. I was doing scene work in between. I would do scenes, and then I go back to work. So for a year until the wheels fell off. They gave me my walk-in papers. But by then, I already put away so much money. And dude, by the way, I got a pension at that job. I got a pension waiting for me, so I'm good, man. So,
and then launch you into the next direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never did a 9-to-5 again. Coaching is the best.
At the moment, I've never had a 9-to-5.
No, you kind of set your own hours, your own sessions.
Well, to a certain extent, To a certain extent, yes. To a certain extent, no. My schedule, I keep it pretty flexible. My early mornings, like my practice is, like I said, the most important thing to me. Yes, so I make sure that I always have time to do my personal practice. But then, private client wants to see me and they hit me up last minute and I can do it. Sure.
It's so liberating. And listen, for the people listening at home, they're having 9-to-5, man. I'm not illing out on y'all. Look,
but then on the flip side, structure, right? Structure and consistency, like that's something that
and that's a type of person too, right?
Well, it's nice to have.
Comfortable knowing that they look.
It's nice to have.
I don't got to deal with no drama except know that I got to be at this place here.
Boom.
I get my assignments, and I know no matter what, when this bell rings, when this 5 o'clock things, I'm gone. Look, there are people that are like, I'm cool. I gotta be at this one place.
That's it.
That's it.
I've been told that I play loose, like poker wise, but in life, like I play loose. And the last year, definitely played very loose. I've traveled a lot in the last year, hiked around for a couple months, moved back and forth, and now in my life I'm like, okay, I want some structure, I want some consistency, partially just so I can again facilitate my practice more.
No,
so I
100%.
can really feel calm, stable, like my root chakra isn't freaked the F out, ground down, so I can again focus and direct my energies where I want to.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
So California, I mean, in June we're supposed to go full on free, right?
Supposed to. We'll see.
They've already relaxed some of these things. We can wear a mask outdoor. We can wear a mask some places indoor. Of course, indoors retain the
right,
the exercising of their right to whatever.
Which is like, I think as a private business, like you should kind of have the right to refuse business to anyone that you want. Personally, I think it's like it's private property. I mean, it's treated as private property.
Right.
Only like you're making money off of it. You can deny anyone access to your house. Like, I think like that's fair. But then on the other side, guess how you're gonna make the most money? Letting as many people in as possible. So the kind of discrimination argument of like not allowing businesses to discriminate against anyone. Like, well, just go ahead and discriminate, because then someone else is going to open up shop and isn't going to discriminate, and people are going to go there.
Yes, one man's trash is another man's whatever. Yep. Like there's some places the restaurants are already like overbooked, and I'm like, I just want a place in order to go, and I'm like, I'm sorry, we're not doing that now, and I'm like, all right, because remember I was the person when y'all were broke and you needed people to order takeout.
I was ordering takeout.
I was there for you all the time, bro. And you can't come on, you don't tell me you don't know my voice.
Don't you tell me you don't know my voice?
Yes. I'm the guy that comes with a Yankee hat with a Brooklyn accent. They know. They know. Don't
they know
say
you.
You serve 1,000 customers.
No, they definitely know you.
And I know most everyone starts to look alike, but there are certain people
they don't sound alike
separate
though.
Themselves. Yeah.
You got that Brooklyn voice.
No, and you do too. Like we're at Starbucks together. There are people that some of your students walk by. They're walking by. They hear your voice.
Oh, hey, that's Carter.
Yes, that's Carter. So,
yeah.
So before we get on to what we're going to want to go next, I want to advise our audience. As far as being medical professionals are concerned.
Trigger warning.
There are different levels. There are scientific things that are so high a level. You need a doctor in a room. You refer to someone like that because there's some things on a level you can understand. Then there's another level that is explained by science, collected. Yeah. Right, where we as human beings can read that, see how it applies to our personal and professional life, and talk about it, and because it's now part of our wheelhouse because we have a full understanding. And then there's another level where it's just the layman terms things. So that's why.
And I think the layman terms gets dangerous because anytime things get turned into layman's terms, they lose their nuance and understanding, right? And then it's easy to get like told something like, oh, well, that's not exactly the truth.
Yes,
because we're using the same term.
Yes, but it's about how you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
If I'm a chef, all right, and you come to me and you say this doesn't taste like steak,
I'm like,
it's not like you don't have the right to say that. You don't have to be a chef. You don't have to. If you had steak enough times in your life, you know what the fuck liver tastes. This ain't steak. I'm not gonna be like, fuck you. You're not a chef.
Yeah.
You shouldn't talk about these things. Those are the levels I was talking about.
Yeah.
And for our audience, for what we're about to say next, I'm preparing them mentally because we're gonna talk about RNA.
Cool.
I want you to give us an education on the things we have learned about RNA, synthetics, and how it applies to the vaccine. Because,
cool.
So what is RNA?
All right, so let's start. I think the conversation should be a little bit broad into what is a virus,
right?
What is a vaccine normally? Like, what are every other vaccine that we've had? How does it work? So what is a virus? What is a vaccine? How does a vaccine work? And then what is this mRNA vaccine? Because, everyone's like, oh, it's like they're experimenting with new mRNA vaccines. And people think it's essentially like the same thing with just like different letters added into the front. And it's not the same thing. And that's where, some concern over like getting vaccinated is extremely legitimate and warranted, and one that I share. So let's start with what is a virus. A virus is not like bacteria. A virus is almost dead. It doesn't move itself, it doesn't reproduce, it doesn't consume. It doesn't exhibit any of the behavior that anything else that's alive does. So we look at a virus, we're like, this isn't really a living thing. But we often think of it like a bacteria, right?
Like, how can we kill it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't really kill it because it's not really alive. It's a packet of DNA. It's a packet of DNA encapsulated and it either attaches to water or it attaches to air. So like we say, it's airborne, right? So
Right.
COVID-19 is a coronavirus. It's a type of virus, the 19th version of this type of virus, at least as far as, we've measured or tracked. And it's an airborne virus, meaning that it attaches to gaseous molecules, not just liquid molecules. And that's important because, well, gas is much smaller than liquid, right? So like it's easy to prevent liquids from moving through. And that's what like a lot of these cloth masks, they prevent like water particles from spraying out, but air moves through these things.
Yeah.
So like it's an airborne particle. It's like it's very hard to contain, very hard. You need like plastic essentially to completely contain it. And when I say plastic, I mean like a balloon that's sealed off like a bubble, right? Like that's contained air.
Yeah, like if you're looking for absolution.
Yeah, like absolute containment, right? So a virus being like a packet of DNA that doesn't move itself, it gets spread through water or through air or through physical contact. And then the way that it's reproduced, it doesn't reproduce itself, it is reproduced. So it gets into your body, usually either through like an open wound or nose or mouth. Those are the options, essentially. And this DNA, like it gets into our cells and our body starts rebuilding it. So we have DNA moving through our body, and our body is producing proteins based off of those DNA, those genetic codes. Each DNA piece or part of a DNA is a code for a certain protein, and that we build it. And so we're made of proteins. Our survival is the motion and activation of different proteins. So it gets into us. That's what like is called an infection. It gets into us, and then we start producing it. And to make it really simple, we might just produce. It might have just been one viral particle, and we reproduce it to 10, and then we notice it. Or we might produce it to like 1 million, and then we notice it. And the kind of sick symptoms that people experience are usually how long does it go before we notice it? And then the sick symptoms are like a shutdown mechanism of stop reproducing this. So let's turn the body into a hostile environment. Let's start sneezing and coughing. Let's try to expel it out. Let's throw up, right? Let's turn up the heat, make it a fever environment, because we don't know what this thing is. We don't recognize it. It's a new virus. We don't know what it is. We've recognized that it's here, but we don't understand it yet. We're like, okay, we've got an intruder. We don't know anything about the intruder. Let's just make this environment really inhospitable to the intruder. Try to get rid of it while we figure it out. So from there, what our body does, the immune system, it sends out cells that try to find the virus. They break apart the encapsulation and they read the genetic code, the DNA. So we have cells that will find the virus, read the DNA, and bring that DNA back to, and part of this I'm using like layman's terms so it can be like really understood.
Yeah.
Kind of like back to the central intelligence agency that's like, look, we've recognized the intruder. This is what they look like. They have this badge, this genetic code, right? So then we produce what we call our antibodies yep. which are the intelligent immune system. So the stupid immune system is like, just turn up the heat, right? Throw it all up, poop it out. The intelligent immune system is, okay, we know what we're looking for. Go find this thing and kill it or regulate it, get rid of it, right? Just this one thing.
Yeah,
so
or just make its life a living hell where it doesn't...
We get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's too much of it, get rid of it. So that's what the antibodies are. So oftentimes, and with COVID, people experience COVID as in like they experience the virus gets into their body, and then we reproduce it. We do. The virus doesn't reproduce itself. We reproduce the virus. Then we notice it. We figure out what it is, and then we launch an immune response to it. So from a normal vaccine, the ones that we've been using throughout, the last 100 years of history, they take the virus, like the influenza virus, or the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, I believe, is this type of virus, or this type of vaccine. So they take the virus, and they usually use like UV light, and it kind of stupefies it. So again, it doesn't kill it, but it makes it like a little bit broken so that when it gets into our body, it doesn't reproduce itself so much. It's easier for us to recognize it and respond to it without it, thriving, right? So you have less symptoms. That's the idea. Because, people who get the flu vaccine, they often still get the flu. Same with COVID. People who have gotten the COVID vaccine still get COVID.
Yeah, strains evolve, yeah.
The idea being, though, you've experienced the virus or an inert version of the virus, and you've created a response team to the virus. So when the virus is present in your body, you will then build or create the antibodies to respond to it. And if you get rid of the virus, then you stop producing the antibodies. So you're building according to what's going on, right? What RNA is, so there's two types. So we've got all this genetic code within us. We've got the genetic code that like is what makes me and what makes you, and we have some that are similar and we have some that are different. We also have the DNA within us, the genetic codes for every virus we've ever experienced. So we hold that within us. That's why, like, if you've gotten COVID, or you've gotten a COVID vaccine, or same with the flu, you're less likely to get it again because you're like, okay, I've experienced something like this. I have a memory in the form of DNA of a code of this type of virus. If the virus, another virus, or a variant of it comes into my body, I can kind of recognize it more quickly because I've experienced something like it and I can launch an intelligent response to it. So with a normal vaccine, you get the virus, just an inert version, and you get that DNA download of like what it is, right? That way, anytime you get anything like it, you have a more intelligent response system to it. And you use RNA as a means of producing the antibodies or the proteins in the response, right? So you have these DNA codes within you. Your body is like, oh, we need DNA code X, right? So the RNA will go find DNA code X, open it up, and make a copy of it. So the RNA is like a copy machine. It takes the code, and then it goes off to a cell and builds a protein, right? So the RNA takes the information and then builds accordingly. Now, with a normal vaccine, you develop the DNA information within you that you can access at any time. So you've kind of become smarter through the process of getting the vaccine, or you've become smarter through the process of just getting sick. If you just got the virus, if you got COVID, you learned it, and your next time experiencing it, you'll have a smarter response system.
Right.
But with this RNA vaccine, the new types of vaccine that we're working with, and these
synthetic, right?
Yeah, the Moderna and Pfizer, as opposed to giving you this inert version of the virus, they've kind of skipped that step. They went and made their own RNA code of the virus's DNA, right? So instead of letting us do that part, they did that part, and now they've made a synthetic RNA molecule. The vaccine is this synthetic RNA molecule, and it goes in, and just like if it was our RNA molecule that we made, it triggers the creation of the antibodies or the spike protein, the protein response to the virus, right? What we don't know about this one, because it's synthetic, is does it go away?
Right.
So normally, if the virus is present, it stimulates the RNA to go copy the correct DNA to make the correct response. And then it eradicates the virus. And then when the virus isn't there, it triggers us to stop making this antibody response. With this synthetic RNA, it's possible that, they inject it into us and it produces the antibody response or the protein response. But it's also, that definitely happens. Like, it gets injected to us and it produces that response within us. But it's possible that it doesn't get dissolved afterwards. And so it continues to produce this protein response regardless of us having COVID or not. So now there's no virus in your body, but you're still producing this protein anyways. And so it's not clear.
In response to the RNA?
Yeah, so if the RNA will be in your body. So let's look at like the pre-vaccine world, right? You get a virus, you get the DNA, you figure out the DNA, you use the RNA to build a response to the virus, and then it gets rid of the virus, and then the DNA is no longer communicating, make a response, right. Keep responding, right? An autoimmune disorder, a lot of times what it will be is we're responding to things that aren't there, or we're responding to what we think something is. We think it's harmful, but it's not. Like allergies are an example of this. Like, why are some people allergic to peanuts? It's not because peanuts are actually toxic to them. For whatever reason, their body perceives it as a threat and launches an immune response against it. So now with this vaccine, and the same thing is true with, okay, as opposed to getting the virus and then building a response, you get a normal, what used to be a normal vaccine, and you build a response to it. You still have, it's your response, right? And then you're not going to be continually creating the response when the virus is not present. But because this kind of skipped a step, we didn't learn the virus, which means that we didn't kind of get that DNA upgrade or download, whatever you want to call it, from the virus. It's not in our DNA library, and we just put the RNA in to trigger the creation of the proteins. And that could just continue. Right. We just keep creating proteins, because, well, we didn't have the stimulus for it in the first place. We don't necessarily have a stimulus for it to stop either. And if the RNA that is injected into us isn't broken down by the body over time, well, then
it's a residual.
Then it's just going to stay.
Right.
It could be that it never breaks down and it just keeps producing.
Or
it could be that it slowly breaks down, in which case it would probably overproduce for a while and then eventually go away. But bottom line, you never made a memory of this virus. You never learned the virus. Right. It's just kind of shortcutted the system to respond to the virus, which means that the next time a coronavirus, we encounter it, we don't have a system in place.
And now, this is the big concern for the medical professionals when as far as like going back to normal, the reason why a lot of these doctors are expressing their concern or has been hijacked by political narratives too, which we're going to get into in a minute, which I think I'll probably do more of the talking on that one.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about that too.
Yeah. I wanted you to finish that, because this is important for people to understand, because it is a synthetic, and it was something like people wanted faster results, and in a perfect world, I mean, to not use an RNA, like it takes about 3 to 5 years.
Well, I mean, Johnson Johnson made one, but Johnson Johnson made one.
They did?
Yeah, and like it got taken off the market because of blood clots, which seemed like 5 or 6 people had blood clotting issues from it, which like millions.
5 million, yeah.
So it seems like an extremely tiny, negligible amount, at least negligible in the statistical evaluation. Yep. Obviously, probably not to the individuals who got it.
Yep.
Yeah, so like Johnson & Johnson made one.
Astra did too, but Astra's not doing it in the United States. AstraZeneca.
Okay, yeah. And so I mean, we could have, we could have made a vaccine that was like the old model, and this is going to be probably a trigger warning, but like I took the chickenpox approach to this, every parent knows, like, it's better to get chickenpox when you're young than when you're old. It can be dangerous when you're old. So let me introduce my kid to it when I'm young. And they don't do it via vaccine. They just do it like, oh, there's a kid that's got chickenpox. Let's put him in a bathtub together. Rub him around. Right? So I figured the same thing with my body. I'm like, I'm going to get COVID. I'm going to experience it. It's airborne. It's everywhere. Right? So it's going to happen. I trust my body. I take care of my body. My girlfriend got it. And she just came over, and we quarantined by ourselves for 2 weeks.
Quarantine, turns into quarantine.
Quarantine, exactly. Like, rub up against me, give it to me. Like, I trust my body to experience it, to not freak out, and to build an intelligent response. And I just kind of upped my breathing practices for that 2-week period as a means of like shifting my gears up to be able to respond to it. But then at the end of it, I've got that response now.
Well, understanding the science collected, and I say science collected because as the facts change, our opinions change. I think the term scientific fact is almost an
misleading
oxymoron.
And potentially misleading.
It's an oxymoron. It's an opinion based on data collected that people that could be so overwhelming people widely accept it.
And I think a lot of times it's like, what science claims is this is how it seems given all the observations we've taken, the experiments that we've done. We can't say conclusively this is exactly what it is, but it seems like this. And we've got like a pretty damn good degree of certainty regarding it. I think mathematics and like physics, anything that you can put into numbers, you can actually prove. But the biological world doesn't work like this because nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything is connected. So you
100%.
can't limit the impact of every confounding variable that's possible. It's not, because you're dealing with living organisms. They're breathing, they're drinking water,
Right.
they're eating,
Yeah, no
they're
doubt.
moving. Like, you can't control for everything, and you can't measure everything within it. So any claim that we make about biology is like, it seems like this, and we can say it with certain amounts of, assuredness or lesser amounts.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I think where I convey my personal disgust is that it's been hijacked
Oh, yeah.
by a political narrative from a small group of people that created this mask or this facade where they seem like they represent the overwhelming majority of the United States.
Just as
These
they
two
have the
people on
overwhelming
opposite
media
sides-
control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, what happens, here's what happens, all right? You got one side that's saying the vaccine's completely 100% safe. You should take it, and if you're not my fucking friend, right?
And that
Then you have-
that the science is 100% capable
Yes.
of making far-reaching claims
Yes.
about the safety of
That's-
it,
and
right?
that's- okay, so-
Beyond 6 months, even though the experiments only lasted like up to 6 months.
No, but all of that lumped into one category.
That's all on one side.
On the other side, I am not.
You're
getting
like,
a
this is a-
vaccine.
this
I'm
is a
never
chip.
getting a vaccine. This is a chip. This
this is a
this.
government
So-
chip. They're going to track me. Or they're like, it's a kill shot.
Yeah. Now here's where the majority stand, because a lot of the sides we just described, they have the money, they have
Polar.
the backing to make themselves look like that they're a bigger group, and
they also- they make money
in
off
our
of
mental, no, but in our
dramatizing.
psyche, in our psychological DNA, nobody wants to be out there alone. They always want to. There is this innate need to feel part of a gang. All right.
It's scary not
That's
to
why I
be
call them
like,
Demo
have a
Crips and
community.
Demo
That's
Crips
funny.
And Republicans.
Yeah.
And I want to apologize to Crips and Bloods. I didn't mean to insult y'all. But I want to go over the categories of the majority of people
Yeah.
who are in the middle of this. Now,
Yeah.
which side of the middle, as the audience, as they continue to listen to you and me dialogue,
think-
it's up to them. Here's one. All right, here's
Yeah.
one. There are people who study the science, are aware that there's a risk.
Yeah.
Like, you just gave me this whole RNA thing, and I'm aware of it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get it anyway. I'll assume
Yeah.
the risk, and this is what I want.
And it's
also-
weighing the risk of like having a serious problem from COVID
But
with
that group of people that I just told you
Yeah.
is collectively, numerically,
Yeah.
a bigger portion than the people that are left to the right. And that's just one.
Oh, absolutely.
Here's another portion of people. There are people who want to get the shot, but they're like, you know what? Let me wait. Let me wait for a couple of million to get the shot. Let me see if these blood clots are just an isolated incident. And then, you know what? I'll make a decision down the line, June or before
Right.
Independence Day. I'll get the shot. That is a huge number of people, which I will say, just like before, is still numerically larger, quantitatively larger than the ones completely one and the other. There are some people, and then there's another group of people where they were gonna get the shot, but then they got scared by Johnson & Johnson, and they might still come back, but right now they're leaning more towards, no, I don't think I want to get the shot. I'm too afraid. So
and again,
those
like,
three categories.
And saying the shot though, like
Yeah,
again,
but
these
hold
are
on a second.
shots.
Hold on. Those
These
three
are
categories.
different shots.
No, but those three categories.
Yeah.
That's the majority of the country.
Yeah, definitely.
That is the overwhelming. I don't know percentages. I didn't take a poll, and even if I did, I'm not trying to assume a bandwagon fallacy.
And I would add another group which
Please.
I find myself
Go
in,
on.
which is like taking that one step beyond of regarding COVID, regarding this disease. Like, I'm not going to get a vaccine. I'm not going to.
Right.
I trust my body, and part of my yoga philosophy is like live as naturally as possible and trust and support the body's natural processes as much as you can. If this was a disease that was killing 40% of people, or even 10%, I'd be like, cool, hit me. Like, give me the vaccine, right? With this situation, like, I don't think this shot is, a government kill shot. I don't think they're putting microchips in us. I don't think that. But nonetheless, I'm like, I don't want it. I know I don't want it.
But
I'm
you
not
are
waiting
a
to see
large
more about
portion.
it. Like,
But you are made to be perceived as this small number of people who are rebellious by the majority of people, and it is a fucking lie.
This idea has gotten clumped with like it's a QAnon idea.
But you're
right.
No, but
they're like,
what you
just said, like this is all you got it off of QAnon. Like that's where your information is coming from. What you just told me.
How many people out there agree with you and are in that category? A
Some,
lot of fucking people. No, more than you think.
I think so too. I think more than I think. I mean, even just during our conversation,
do they have a platform?
We had a little old lady like outside of Starbucks who came and was like, I'm not. Yeah, she started talking about it.
What major network would give someone like you a platform to speak on this? You are the overwhelming majority of the people that go completely QAnon and the other people that are like, trust the government on everything.
Yeah.
My next podcast, I got Ishmael Wilson. He's going to talk about why the black community is hesitant about that. That's going to be on my next month.
The black community should be hesitant about anything that the like white government tells them to do. And the more adamant that they are about it, like the more suspect you should be about it. 100%. And like sensibly so, given the history, given the track record.
But I think if more people realize that and just come to the middle, there is a level of empathy and understanding where someone who's a little bit older than you is out of shape. You know what? They know the risk.
Yeah. Different situation.
It might mess me up, but it might be better and might make more things come to normal. Then there's people in your situation where you're already part of a quarantine. You already have a bubble created, and for those that don't, you already distance yourself or whatever. You are someone that might not take the vaccine, but it does not make you irresponsible. And I take exception to the people that say that you not taking the vaccine makes you more or less irresponsible when you're being more responsible than the people.
I would say more responsible than the people who are like, and more responsible than the people who are. Claiming emphatically that like there's nothing to worry about here, right?
They're equally as dangerous.
It's totally dangerous.
They're both equally as dangerous. The people that say you have to get the vaccine for every reason the government says so is just as dangerous as the person that says fuck you, I'm anti-vaccine.
And
those are not. They are made to be the majority. I'm gonna call you Miles Carter. They're made to feel like the majority, and they're made to gaslight you.
Well, and when they
gaslight you into thinking you're part of this tiny group of people that don't want to fucking conform. It's so dishonest. It's so disingenuous. I'm sorry.
And then like the politicization of this as well has just been absolutely incredible.
Hijack.
I mean, to see. All right.
A terrorist hijack.
There is an advertisement campaign to get people vaccinated.
Yep.
And when I say that, it's not just like trying to give people as much information as possible. They're making hashtags. They're making infographics, right? I saw this thing where like you have this like design of someone like this, and it's like hashtag sleeves up, as in like take your photo and hashtag it with like the fact that you got a vaccine. Like anyone who's studied advertising knows like this is a psychological weapon isn't the right word, but like a psychological tool to get people to get on board with it. So you're not being just presented with information like make the best decision that's right for you.
No, you're getting honey-dicked.
Yeah. Like, and that's a really scary part about it. I assume I know what you're meaning.
Hoodwinked.
Bamboozled. I mean, twisted.
Honey-dicked.
Yeah.
We're gonna use that.
Yeah.
We're keeping that. Then Brendan Schaub, wherever you are out there, Brian Callen, honey-dicked. Thank you.
And then. There's this field of moral psychology, which is attempting to understand like the psychology, which goes into like the biology, the neurology of morals. What are morals? What are the moral frameworks from which we see the world? And this author, Jonathan Haidt, he writes about like Republican and Democratic parties and what their moral framework is. And what you have with the left, with Democrats, is it's this huge hyper focused on the care harm principle, right? So anything that's like someone's a victim, someone's been hurt, someone's being, victimized. No, anyone that's being victimized, essentially, like it's our job and our responsibility to take care of those people. And that's like the whole moral grounding of the left. And you see it with COVID. It's people are dying, people are sick, like we need to help them. And if you don't, like you're immoral. Like it's the moral thing to do. And if you don't, it's immoral. Right? And it doesn't talk about the means.
Nope.
How can we help them? What's the best way to help them? At what cost will we help will we help people? Because I mean, if we were to think, all right, let's again simplify it. We're on a desert island. There's 1,000 people. There's only, There's not enough food to go around for everyone, right? There's not enough resources to go around for everyone. If one person is sick, like, are we going to stop the functioning of the whole society just to protect that one person from dying? Or is it just kind of a reality that, it does happen to people, and we actually might be causing more damage by stopping the function, not gathering food, not gathering water, because again, might put this person in more danger. But like, everything's got a cost. We know this from this last year, the amount of money that was lost from the economic stopping, and the amount of money that's gone into this, like, huge amounts of money. And we've got so many different threats and problems in our society. And it was like, without a question, like, no questions about it. Don't even talk about the monetary value. Don't even talk about like how many people are actually being saved or not. Just as much money as is necessary. Just pour it in.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the freedom people.
Yeah.
It's my right, and these are my least favorite people too. They're just as bad as the people that you described. The
freedom without responsibility, because I think that's the issue. Because
I'll say it like this:
I think libertarianism
just 'cause something's your right doesn't always make it a good
idea. Yeah, like, I consider myself a libertarian to a certain degree, and I think like freedom only works politically when people are highly responsible individuals. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of assholes.
Well, that's why everyone's blaming the liberals on this. Basically, if you don't behave like adults, the government will treat you like children.
Oh, daddy government.
If you don't behave like adults, all right? Like, if, let's say, Gavin Newsom, whatever, the biggest fucking political hack of all time, and mind you, I lean more left than right, and I'm saying that. No, but let's say Gavin Newsom says, hey, let's just behave like responsible adults. If you're on the Strand, wear a mask, socially distant, this and that. But let's say there's a bunch of people that are like, nope, I'm going to walk my dogs and my babies, and I'm going to take up a whole family row, and this and that. Guess what they're going to do? They're like, all right, these people are not behaving like adults. I'm shutting down the Strand. I'm shutting down the beach. That's what happened. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, where the majority of the country is. Because like you said, there is a victimization thing going through for the liberals. But there are levels of that. And I think, listen, realizing that people that are going to be victims to this is a real thing. It's just, there are levels to it. How much is too much where you're playing this victimization? And then on the other side, it should be your right to do whatever the fuck you want. And in categories where people turn quarantine into quarantine, the NBA, we learned a lot from the NBA creating a goddamn bubble. There wasn't 354 players, not one positive test, including that guy that tried to sneak a fucking stripper in or whatever. I don't even know what he did. But on that side, they're not wrong either. But when freedom, when someone says taking off my mask at a Vaughn's is the bravest thing I've done all year, you're not.
Get out of here!
Brave.
You're not brave.
You're fucking.
It's
so weird because there's a volleyball player, Carrie Waltz, wrote about that on her social network, and she got so much blowback from it. First of all, here's the thing. I thought it was unfair because she talked about what you said. Do things to help your immune system. Eat right. Exercise. Do these things.
Health is an inside job.
But these things help you combat almost
everything.
Everything. So I hated that she said, I took off my mask. Whatever, and it was the most freeing, most liberating feeling that I had. And I knew where she was coming from, because wearing this thing on your face, I don't care how normal some people, it is not a normal fucking feeling, okay? So when she said that, who in their mind didn't say in their mind, like, at some point during this whole COVID, I just want to fucking rip this thing off and yell and spit into the air and have all the fucking spit land on my face. So I understood where she was coming from, but she was treated very unfairly by the media and she's the greatest volleyball player, American beach player in our American beach player in our history. She transcends the sport. People that don't know the sport know who she is. So
Carrie Walsh
Jennings, yeah. Misty, May, and Carrie, they were the best team ever. The best players, Jackie Silva, a whole nother story. But they took this whole thing, this small part of this long diatribe,
and they blew it up into
strawman the fuck out of it.
Yeah,
I did too. I have a show called Sports Debate Tuesday, where I try to stay away from volleyball unless big events happen. It's basically a volleyball's getaway to talk about MMA,
anything
football,
else.
basketball, and debate about sports that we do on our leisure. But that was right in our face. And the beginning of the episode, I said, this chick's off her rocker. That's, and I know.
And there's always more to it. When you're talking to
Yes.
any human being, there's always more to it. There's always a context. Like someone, can you imagine someone just like ripping off their mask, like, oh, yes, right? And you could look at that and be like, this person
I
is.
can't breathe in this fucking thing.
Like, this person's being really dramatic. Or they just came off of a 12-hour shift where they've had that mask on the whole time. Like, context matters.
You're sitting there, you're having a beach practice with a mask on. I mean, this must be fucking crazy.
Outside, if you're outside, it's totally unnecessary. Again, looking at like this is an
likely
airborne thing.
Yeah.
There's so much air, like so
But
little
the beach
air.
is the one place where you can do it safely. You got.
Yeah.
You ever go to Hermosa Beach? Even in the morning, the wind from ocean to strand is just.
Anything that happens
booming
is going to get taken up in everywhere.
It's the second safest sport besides tennis and golf. You know what I mean? You're playing doubles. You know what I'm saying? You're on the beach. The wind's going ocean to strand. You can't even smell a fart. Someone farted, you can't even smell it. It's just gone.
It's gone.
No, but my first response was because when the news came out, that's all anyone was talking about. I was like, oh my God, Carrie, what the fuck have you done?
She's getting crucified.
And I called her husband. I'm not, Casey Jennings.
What have you done?
No, I said, talk to me now.
Yeah.
Or when I go on the show, I'm going to form my own conclusions. And, and the guy defends his wife like... It's like Candyman. You say Candyman 3 times, he's knocking at your door. He's gonna fuck you up because that's how much Casey cares about his wife.
And he respects her and like trusts her for what she's doing.
He's ready to. I'm telling you, that time he's ready to throw down with everybody. But he called me and we talked about it. And I'm like, this is what I'm gonna say on my show. I'm gonna give you my first take, and I'm not gonna lie. I thought she was off her rocker. And then when I read it, my second take was, I get it. Maybe not the safest thing to say when you're popular, when you're the most popular player. She's 47 years old.
But I would
she's
say
not even in the AVP, and she's still the most popular player.
Potentially, she has the greatest responsibility to be not politically correct, though.
Well, the disappointment came because of all the things that she can use her platform for. We had people getting shot in the back. We had people with police's knee on your neck. We had people that were, in New York City that.
But is anything as wide range
on top of each other?
Is anything as wide range as the mask thing though?
No.
That's a lot. Affects almost everyone. I'd say like humans are not
100%.
the kind of hyper rational creatures that we often give ourselves credit for. We're not. Like, we like to think of ourselves as being that, but we're highly symbolic creatures. We're highly emotional creatures, although a lot of us emotionally stupid because we haven't like figured out that faculty or that part of us. But so you say, like wearing a mask, right? Like everyone hates wearing a mask. Like, why? It's like, you could say like the air still comes through and it's not that big of a deal. And like straight up, it's not that big of a deal. But at the same time, there's something symbolic that's happening that your subconscious mind can't ignore. And that's the fact that you're covering your airways with a piece of cloth at someone else's order. Like, that is the subjective reality of so many people.
It's not even supposed to feel organically
and that
normal.
is a heart dampener.
Right.
That is like, it's an energetic oppression. And again, like that word, not a PC word. Like, it's a word like a lot of people would freak out to use the word oppressive. But, shit. You're closing off the thing that connects you to life. The means by which you are constantly staying alive has now got something put up and over it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, I used oppression complacency.
Stockholm syndrome?
No, Stockholm syndrome is when you fucking defend the person who holds you hostage, which is basically what any broke person does to defend millionaires. I mean, when I watch someone who's broke talk about the millionaires need their fucking jets and all, I'm like, dude, that is the worst case of Stockholm syndrome ever. No, but oppression complacency is when it's been happening to you so long, where you feel like there's no way out.
Yeah,
you're just like, what's the point? I'm complacent. This is the world we live in today.
And I'm worried about like that's how people are gonna come out of this event in the next month. Like, what if people like? Yeah. Okay, the CDC has just released new mask guidelines that like, okay, if you're fully vaccinated, which fully vaccinated,
dude, they've been wanting to do that for quite
fully
some
vaccinated in itself is like a catchphrase that doesn't actually necessarily mean anything. You got 2 shots. You've got a better response system to getting COVID theoretically, but you could still get COVID. So you're like full vaccination. It's not full.
But CDC said this 2 months ago,
and
it's on the news now.
Well, I mean, and
like
Fauci was like arguing with people in Congress like weeks ago about like it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated, you need 2 masks,
3 masks,
and now the CDC is saying like, okay, if you're fully vaccinated, you can wear a mask. And is everyone just like gonna start running around with their vaccination cards, be like, look, I have a right to breathe freely now?
Well, Fauci's collection of science and data was in conflict with his critical thinking skills, and I'll tell you why. Fauci is the first one to tell you that the mask doesn't protect you from getting it; it just protects you from giving it. Like it's there to provide more protection in case you have it. So if he's stating that as his scientific fact, and then says CDC says that it's okay to not wear the mask, but you should wear it anyway in case someone else has it, he's contradicting himself, because he's the same person that says it's more for you to prevent you from giving it than getting it. But now he's saying you should wear it to prevent you from getting it. His critical thinking skills is contradicting his collection of facts.
I don't think the masks work, period.
Well, I believe
so. If this is an airborne particle,
right,
it attaches to carbon molecules.
Yep.
Like we know this. So it attaches to viruses are tiny, so tiny that we can't even like talk about it in a way that the mind can understand it. Right? Tiny, so tiny that they attach to like single carbon molecules. These carbon molecules, they go through your mask.
Of course that.
And
I wasn't talking about complete protection. I didn't.
But so what
I'm not making that illogical.
But then the virus is going out and about through the mask. It doesn't care.
Yeah. But my point is, let's say you're wrong about that. And
it's possible.
No, but let's say the presumption, the widespread exception of facts from both the Democrats and Republicans was that wearing it prevents you from giving it if you have it. Because I never accepted that it prevents you from getting it. Because it's like someone peeing. No, it's like me peeing on your jeans. You know what happens? The piss is still on your jeans and it stays there longer, and you have a better chance of getting wet because it is now soaked into your jeans. So that's how I'm from a layman. That's how I treated like the mask. Like if you're wearing a mask, it makes it worse because it holds the particles. So or it holds the carbon.
I've got something
longer than if you didn't have the mask.
So I've got something else. What I think better than a mask: breathing through your nose. So it's an airborne particle. Comes in through the breath, right? That's how we get it.
Pretty much the only venue, yeah.
Right? Comes in through the breath. Unless you have like an open wound and someone just like coughs into it and it gets just straight up in your bloodstream, it comes in through your breath. So when you breathe, a lot of people, they just breathe through the mouth. And the mouth was not designed for breathing normally. It's like an emergency system. So if you need a lot of breath really quickly, you can get it through the mouth much more quickly.
Yeah. During a fight, get a broken nose, got to breathe through your mouth.
Anything, right? If you're fighting, if you're running, like, I don't mean like running for exercise, because I think you should nose breathe for that too. If you're like running for your life, mouth breathe. You need a lot more energy. The nose, it filters everything that comes in. So it's getting viruses, it's getting dirt, it's getting bacteria, all this stuff. It's trapping it through the hairs into the mucus.
It's an air conditioned filter.
But it's also adding in nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is a chemical that you might know from like pre-workout and stuff. It does a few different things, like dilating your blood vessels, but it's antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial. So when you breathe through your nose, this chemical is being added into it that is essentially sterilizing or rendering inert any of these things that come in. So just like how they do with the vaccine, they render the thing inert and then they put it in you. You've got a chemical in your nose that's doing that exact same thing all the time. Plus, it's the whole vaccine thing. It's weird that it's injected because you don't experience anything injected into you. That's not natural, right? Prior to
maybe I don't know.
Well, it's definitely
it's not.
The idea of
it. Don't fucking feel normal.
The idea of putting anything just straight up into a vein, like that's not a normal thing. That never happens in nature. In nature, you experience things through your nose, through your mouth.
No, but it's pretty widely accepted of how something makes you feel is already a given.
So.
We could be talking about any kind of drug, right?
Part of your immune system and the part where you're reading your environment and trying to like figure it out is in your tonsils. So if you're pulling in viruses through your nose and it's going into the mucus and it's getting dropped down onto your tonsils, like that's where you're going to be reading the information and then creating an effective response team for it. Otherwise, like your immune system needs to go and find it and bring it back up to the tonsils. So it's like this weird way to do it, to inject it, as opposed to, swab it on the tonsils.
Yeah. But my point is CDC said this months ago. I mean,
like the opposite, you mean?
No, if you don't need to wear the fucking mask.
Oh, okay.
Once you got the whatever, but the people in charge of legislation are mandating when you could take off the mask and this and that were very, very slow, because there were scientific concerns that go beyond my level of maintenance. Of course, it's not my wheelhouse. As much as it's not really your wheelhouse either. But you are someone that definitely educates yourself on data collected, the science collected, and you using your critical thinking skills, which, by the way, I think is a whole other level of anyone I talked to on this podcast since my friend Kathy Parent. She was part of Ebola's first team, the first team for Ebola, and eradicating that. She is a lab rat. So basically, she's in charge of a company that helps people prepare medications and vaccines for the FDA.
Okay.
Which is more administrative, but
yeah.
But she went to college.
She's in the process.
But she went to college. Her master's degree and her undergrad medical laboratory sciences. She's really just a lab rat who's pushing pencils. But she's all about that science. So really, she's the only person I talked to that gave it to me straight about this, and this isn't the whole reason why you're on my podcast. I just think you're an interesting motherfucker, and this whole yoga thing, and I thought me and you could shoot the shit on different styles of yoga, physical and the psychological, that may generate from a religious aspect or just a biomechanical aspect. And I thought it was absolutely fun having you on this episode, and for all the way up to this, because I knew we were going to cover this RNA thing.
We had to. That's how the conversation got started between us.
Dude, you had people stopping, like we're at Starbucks, people had stopping to listen. I was like, if we go 15 more minutes,
let's just do this public.
They're just gonna sit on the fucking floor on the sidewalk and listen to this conversation.
Wouldn't that be fun if we just made like a community talking event? It's like, hey,
why not?
Let's get together.
I got a good platform.
It's time.
Already,
Let's talk.
Man.
Yeah.
Look, most of my guys are volleyball nuts. Facebook is the most activity. I get about 15,000 views an episode on Facebook. YouTube is more like 15 because I'm not giving them my money. They're my Google account. If I pay for it, they could steer traffic my way. But maybe when I get to episode 100, if I don't have like a contract, like an exclusive contract with someone,
we can figure.
Then I'll promote on YouTube. But
cool.
But a lot of the popular players, but Facebook, I boosted it a couple of times, and now it's out of control. I got people from Australia, any country that speaks English watching this podcast that plays volleyball. So, but
hopefully I got some interesting stuff to think about.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, shit, we covered it all. I was going to talk about Dave Chappelle, man. I put a quote up on Facebook where Dave Chappelle said it's hard to entertain people with brittle ears. And we could, dude, if we had another hour, we could go that way. I got one coming up after this, an hour from now.
Yeah.
So, but I knew we would definitely get past hour 2. We're like,
I'll the
clock on that.
I can't have like just an hour conversation.
This thing holds 2 hours and 26, and we're 2:07 in, so
sweet.
The file holds it, but we got to do this again.
Cool.
We got to do this again.
Into it.
I felt like we accomplished what we want to, but there's still so much conversation left.
There's a lot to talk about. And I think that's the thing. Like, we just got to keep talking. People got to keep talking and not be afraid to talk. The more you talk, the more you listen to people, the more conversations we get. Like, I believe in, the playing out of ideas, and they need a playground. They need a field in which they can, be explored and like be morphed and changed and adapt and taken down and rebuilt, and like we'll get good ideas, we'll get a good understanding of the world if we continue to talk about things.
That's probably why I had the Dave Chappelle thing here. I'm like, you have to be in this place, or maybe a place under that place, where men and women get to meet and talk.
Yeah.
Where you're allowed to think out loud. And if someone's wrong, it's like, look, actually, it's this. Instead of saying you shouldn't, shut up and dribble, or just
without making character attacks.
Yeah, with gaslighting.
Yeah,
that's a big term now, and it's a real thing.
If there, I absolutely think so too.
Yeah,
I think, if there is a truth to be found, it's going to happen by us, putting as much energy as possible into trying to discover it as opposed to believing we already have it.
Truth. My man speaks truth. My dude, you speak truth. I'm a toast.
Cheers.
Where can people reach you if they want to know more about Soho Yoga?
Awesome. Soho Yoga is by the Hermosa Beach Pier in Hermosa Beach, California. I teach yoga there. My Instagram handle is fucking breathe without a U, so it's FCKING. Breathe.
FCKING.
FCKING.
And
fucking breathe. Yeah. Because I think that's what I would prescribe to all of humanity right now.
It's just at fucking breathe.
Yeah, just at fucking breathe. I got a good handle. I found it. Like, boom. That's me. Yeah. Also teaching at Yoga Loft in Manhattan Beach. I teach yoga all over the place. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, my man Miles Carter, he might love you, but I can't stand you. In fact, I'm out of here. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPad, for all of you on your iPhone, at Starbucks, for all of you on your Droid, for all of you on your desktop, who runs the world? Old school. For my man Carter Miles, I'm Jason DeBiz. This is episode 86 of the Option Podcast. Hit my music. We're out. Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.